And
Look like they're getting interrogated
It's
for a crime.
June 7th,
Yeah.
2014, and we're here with our family, Gus Grant, Rudy Grant, Vivi Brooks, Mary Farkash, Ann Rockman, Olivia Rockman, Marcy Newell, Lexi Grant,
Marsh,
Brooks,
It's Alexandra Lester.
Alexandra Lester,
Also known
and Elaine Grant,
I don't know, but
Marcia Epstein, and myself,
Kate Gray.
Kate Bateman.
Kate Gray.
Okay.
Kate
And
Grant
Alex
Bateman.
Miller.
Okay, cool.
Oh, is he here? Okay.
So today we are attempting to get some history from Gus and Rudy Grant, brothers, on their life in Hungary, their travels to Romania, and then their travel to the United States. So we're going to start with Rudy. Rudy, you and Gus lived with foster parents. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience, who they were, what your ages were, and about the time that you started living there and about the time that you ended?
To my knowledge, I started living there when I was 8 months old. Of course, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what they told me. 8 months, and I was there till 1940. In the summer of 1940, we went to Butcher from there. Now, the name of the people was Ejas Janos, and the mother's name, I don't know, we called her Anya, which means mother. And they had a girl living there, Gizzy Cat, and I think she was around 13 years old at the time. She was a good girl, and they had another girl named Marcy. And they had another son, I think Mishka? Fetty. So I didn't know them too much because the older guys left, but we lived there with them for not 7 years.
Okay. And were they good people?
Good people, good
Okay.
people.
7 years, but you said you left in 1940 and you were there from when you were an infant, so,
Yeah, well,
33.
and you're 33,
40.
7 years, okay.
Roughly 7
Okay.
years.
Or actually 34.
And did you
or
come to
40.
see these people as your parents?
Yes.
You did, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you had
in
a
fact,
great
when-
attachment to them?
Yeah, well, we got attached to them because our mother came visit when she could. But hey, you know, that was mother, and I ran away from her because I had to go give her a hug and kiss, you know, and all that good stuff. And who wants to kiss a woman at that age, you know, so, but I'm sorry, but I ran from her. But she caught me.
She did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the older siblings, were they adopted too, or
No,
were
they were the real siblings.
Why did
Jessica was the youngest one that was living there.
Okay. Go ahead and finish.
And Gus and I, we go out in the springtime and to the meadow, to the field, with a flock of geese. We bind the geese all the time until they time to come home with the geese later on in the evening. And one time Gus fell into the lake over there, and they came, asked me where Gus was. I told them he was over there blowing bubbles. They reached him and hauled his butt out of there. Another time we went and we were shooting arrows. We made our own arrows with nail in it. And Gus went out, I shot, and Gus came back and he shot, I went. I didn't wait till he got out all the way, and I got one in his head. Do you remember that?
That says a lot.
Yeah.
And talk about you squeezing the geese, how happy you were.
When I was younger, they loved them little geeses. I love you, and I choked them to death. But then later on, I got a bogoy.
An owl.
An owl. And I had to shimmy all the way up into the rafters, and he scratched me all up, but I tucked him in a shirt and took him home.
He was in the barn, or?
He was in a barn up in the rafters, and you know, we gave them chicken livers, but the burger didn't last too long because they didn't like to give him chicken livers. We also had a dog that ate chicken eggs. And one day they had a big pear tree there, and there he was swinging by the neck. They done the dog in because they don't like, you should not
So
steal eggs.
who would have done that? Your foster family?
Well, yeah, I mean, they don't like the chicken stolen eggs.
Yeah, that's their food. Okay, great. Dad, can you add to that? Tell us a little bit about
Do you remember
whether or not you felt that you had food. Were you lacking for anything during those years that you were there? Were you going to school at all during the time that you were there? Was there any education?
No.
And finally, tell us about your leaving there and what transpired.
Okay. I lived with the family, well, both of us, of course, lived with the family.
Can you tell us their
Well,
names again?
Janos, right?
Yeah, it was, so it means John, John Aziash. It's E-Z-S-I-A-S.
Okay.
And anyway, we really had very good, they were parents to us, and we enjoyed our life there. We had good food. We had, you know, they took care of us like we were their
The
own.
kids.
I ended up going to school there. My first year of school in 1939 was there, and of course we left there in 1940, like Rudy said.
What month?
In the summertime, just before school started, around
Yeah.
August or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the family was they had an interesting attachment to Nazism. Yeah, the old man John, he had some high officials from the Nazis. I don't know who they were, but they came there with a beautiful automobile. The first one I ever saw that was that nice. It was a big convertible, all red seats inside. I don't know what make it was. It was a German-made car, and that was my first time ever I rode in a car. And I don't know what these officials really were all about, but you know, they had, of course, they had a song that they used to sing in Hungarian about the Jews.
Sing it, Gus.
Oh, I don't remember exactly what it started.
You know, I remember some songs like that, but I don't know where it came from. And I don't remember this automobile either.
The flavor of the song was an anti-Semitic song?
Yes.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah.
Oh, yes. I'm trying to think what.
You sang it to me about 5 years ago.
Yeah, well, that was 5 years ago.
Can you remember it?
Anyway,
Anyways, go on, Dad.
so he himself was a Nazi. Okay. However, at the time, they didn't do anything that was bad. You know, it was it was the beginning of the Nazi era in Hungary. Okay. I remember some of that song now. It said, May Szálasi was the Hungarian he wasn't an emperor, I don't know. He was the head,
Prime Minister.
prime minister
Yeah.
probably
Yeah,
of
I
Hungary.
remember that.
Anyway, the song went that Szálasi and Hitler should live.
Hey, that's where I.
Éljen a Szálasi meg a Hitler.
Yeah.
And we should beat the Jews with bullcocks.
Yeah, dried out bullcocks. Pikachu. That's what. Yeah, that's what it sung. I wonder where I remember that
Yeah.
song. Damn it! It was from there.
Oh, and then it said, one rabbi, two rabbi. May the main rabbi die.
Yeah.
So this was
Yeah. I remember them songs.
So-
anyway. That was essentially it.
Okay.
Now, was he somewhat wealthy, or how
He
did he have
was-
this affiliation with these
he-
kind of high up people, do you think?
I don't know. He was
He had fields of grain, fields of.
he was actually a farmer.
a farmer. Yeah.
He may have been supplying them with food, the Nazis. You know, he may.
I don't
they
know.
may be
Yeah,
something.
They had
I
an
don't-
orchard that they grew grapes.
So, okay, final question about this subject. At one point, as Rudy said, he did come to understand that this woman who came and chased him around for love and affection was actually his
Mom,
mother and
yeah,
your
yeah.
mother. And there was a point in time where she gathered you up and took you home, or took you from this family. Was it ever made clear to you why you were brought there in the first place from her, and what was the detachment from this family like for you two?
The reason that she took us to that family was for care. She was unable to take care of us because she had to work,
Right.
and she couldn't do both.
But do you remember going to them, because you were already two,
He
right?
was little.
I tell you, even before we went to this family, we were in a home. It was in the same town, in Jászfelsőszentgyőr.
I didn't remember that.
Anyway, I remember the building. I remember one time feeding Rudy.
guy.
But I don't really remember much of it. I remember the fence they had. It was a beautiful, it was a block fence, and it was really very, very nice, hand-built fence. And in the front of the building, there was a big central nursery, kind of, where they had all kinds of different plants, flowers, whatnot. I mean, the place was very, very nice. Beautiful front entrance to the building. But that's about all I remember.
And do you remember the family coming to take you, the foster family? From
No,
you?
I don't. The next thing I knew, we were
There.
there.
Okay, but jumping forward, staying on where we are now, we're now to the point where, as I said,
Yeah,
Grandma
okay.
did come, and then somehow you had to have a separation from this family, and that must have been very difficult.
It was tough.
Yeah.
I cried.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
like I say, I was almost 7.
yeah.
And you know, you must all understand that Mom came often to visit us, not just the time that Rudy ran away from
Yeah,
us.
understood.
You know?
And she bring, guess what? Cod liver oil.
Oh, I can see why you were so
We
attached
did
to
not
her.
like cod liver oil, but they gave it to you with a spoon, and you got a sugar cube with it. But Mom gave us stuff, and one day they sent a package of this stuff,
That
and
was
guess what happened?
that was already in Butcher.
That was in butcher already, but anyway, it broke. And I was never so happy in my life.
Okay, so next question, back to Rudy again. You left this family with Grandma, you went to Butcha. First of all, how did you travel from this home to Butcher with
Well,
Grandma? And
I
then
remember-
tell me a little bit about
I
your
remember
experience
horse
there.
cart going to the train, and the train went to, I believe, to Cartsog, and from there, I don't know, another horse cart or
Somebody-
something like that.
Somebody picked us up with,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So now you're in the country,
Yeah,
and these are, it's explained to you that these are your grandparents and potentially your cousins, and there
well,
were
I
kids
didn't
that
know
lived
who
there.
they was, but
Right.
there they was. Grandpa, you know, he never laid eye on us, but he welcomed Gus and I with open arms.
Did he know you were coming?
Yes.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
No. This,
And who
He
was,
put
li-
the snake on him.
who was living there with your grandmother and
Oh,
grandfather?
at that time, well, Geza was there, and Freddy was there, and Lucy was there, and Grandma was there, and Grandpa was there. I think maybe my Uncle Mike was there, but he was a gendarme.
He was with the Hungarian state police.
Yeah, with the feathers in their
That
hand.
that
Did-
was good.
Rudy, did you take to these boys
Yeah.
right away where you
Right
felt
away,
well cared
yeah,
for?
yeah.
Okay, and you lived there for how many years?
Well, from 1940 to 1945, 5 years,
So now you're 12
yeah,
at the end of this.
almost 12.
Okay, and how often was your mother visiting?
Well, not too often, but she came.
Okay.
And Veronica came, and Helen came, and Cato came. They all came at different times
Did they
because,
know you were grandchildren?
yeah,
Yeah.
they knew we were grandchildren.
So now you really got introduced to this huge network of people that were this family that you never knew you had.
Yeah,
And was that a good feeling?
it's a good feeling.
Oh, it was, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Dad, on that same subject, tell me about the education. What was going on in the country in terms of getting the kids educated? Were you going to school with your your uncles, or was it a homeschool thing? And
It
in
was-
terms of economy, what did you have in terms of food, clothing at this place?
Okay. After we met my grandparents, the following semester, we both started school. Rudy started the first grade, and I started the second grade, and it was a public school. They had two different schools in Butcher. One was this public school, the other one was I believe it was a Methodist at the church. They had some very few children there though. And the public school had most of the children. And so we went there. I was in second grade. Then, you know, we lived there. And winters were harsh. By the time I finished the fourth grade there, it was time. See, Hungary has a different way of education. They had a thing where if you finished your fourth grade, you were and you had good grades, then you were eligible to go to what they call gymnasium, which was an 8-year school. And then, oh, wait a minute, was it 8 or 4 years?
I think it was 4 years.
4-year school.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a 4-year school. So I ended up going from Bucha to Budapest to attend gymnasium.
what year was this?
That was in 1940.
44, I believe,
40.
45. He wasn't there too
40.
long, maybe a year.
Was it a boarding school, Dad, where you
Well,
would stay there?
I
This is with the
I
priest.
lived in a boarding school
Okay.
that I went to school from,
Boarding house.
boarding house. Well, the boarding house was taken care of by priests. They were
Franciscan priest.
Franciscan, yeah, they were Franciscan fathers. And it wasn't very far from the school. It was actually within walking distance and we used to do that. And then in the spring of 1944, while I was in school, because I started school in 43 and went through 1944 June. So, but in 1944 June, May, no, not May, March. In the March of 1944, the Germans invaded Hungary. And, well, of course, invaded, maybe it wasn't invaded, it was
They came through.
the Nazis, the Nazis were really on their side, so what was Horthy Miklos, his name was.
The Hungarian chancellor.
He was, yeah, and they kind of pushed him out. He ended up going to Portugal, and I think that's where
I
he
wonder
ended up
what
and
happened
died.
to Horthy.
He died in Portugal, I
Ah,
believe.
good day.
He never did get back to Hungary. Anyway, so then of course at the same time they had a lot of the Nazis. They had the black shirts, kids, young kids,
Brown shirts.
brown shirts.
And what was the arrow cross or something?
Arrow
The Nazi,
Yeah,
yeah.
call them.
And so they had these guys. Then on one of my trips with my mother in Budapest, we were walking along. I believe, I don't remember exactly which avenue. It doesn't really matter. But one of these Nazi kids with the brown shirt, they had guns, you know. And for some reason, there was an old lady that kind of got in his way, you know, and he killed her right there on the spot, you know, for no good
And
reason at all.
you were like 12?
I was like 12, 11, I think.
Well, he forgot to tell you, not only did he, but Letty also went to the gymnasium in Csongrád, which is south of Hungary, and they left me alone in Bucha.
Yeah.
Me and Grandpa grew all the good stuff for us that year. Anyway, Gus went to Budapest to the gymnasium to play with the priests, and Letty went to Csongrád to play with the Cherries group.
Why did you go to different, why did they go?
I was not old enough to go to that thing.
Because
Why did you and Lexi-
because Lutzi went to a school that was affiliated with the county. Okay, so he went to that county school. It was a university, and me, I went to Budapest not just to go to school, but to visit Mom, you know, and then I ended up going to school there.
Oh,
So-
she wanted you closer to her or
Yeah.
something, right, okay. So the
Well,
opportunity was there.
it's because I was actually finished with my grade school, 4th year, you know. You didn't have to go any further
Then grade 4.
than grade 4.
Yeah.
And the reason for that was because Hungary was an agricultural country. And a lot of the young kids at the age of 12, they were needed on the farms, you know, to work the fields. So they didn't have to do any more school than 4 years.
And
Now-
by that time they learn how to read and write, you know,
Yeah.
that's it.
So
Plus,
it-
it seems like you started a little bit older than they do today. You didn't start kindergarten at age 5.
Well, I didn't
We
go
had
to
no
kindergarten.
Right, you started later, yeah. So those
Yeah.
4 years, by the time you finished, you were
Yeah.
older than a 4th grader would be today, I think.
Yeah, let's see, I started in 39. I was,
44 is the last year.
actually, I wasn't 7 years old yet when I started school. you know.
Vivi has a question.
Vivi, can you ask your question?
It's not a question, get it off me, Mary.
Okay, it's a comment. Go ahead.
When they came to the United States, they didn't start school because they figured in Hungary they finished school in the 4th grade. They don't have to go to school here. Well, the
That's true.
truant officer asked them what the hell they were doing. So they had to start school in the United States.
And I have a
Ma,
question
Ma didn't
also
put you in
going
school
back.
right away?
No,
No, okay.
It was 1944, 45 is what you were saying, but by then my mother was born and Grandma was with my grandfather, Clarence.
yeah.
So where was my grandmother and my grandfather with my mother at the time when you two weren't
They
living?
lived in Budapest.
But you were not with your own mother.
No, we was in Bucha. She was born in
44.
Budapest, and they lived in Pályaudvar.
Right.
10 is the number of
So
the
if my
house.
grandmother married and had a child, there were 3 of them at that time, why were you two not living with my mother and her parents?
The reason is because Mom had a hard time just feeding that one,
But she
much
was-
less 2 louts
It was
like us.
wartime.
Okay, that was my curiosity.
But yeah,
question.
that's how it was.
Okay, Rudy, I'm going to ask you to finalize this particular question that we're working on right here, and that is, Dad left. He went to his school. He's in Budapest. He's having some interaction with his mom on occasion, but he's no longer seeing his grandparents. He's not seeing his brother. He's
They
not seeing.
deserted me.
And you. So I want to know how your life was without your brother. You really weren't seeing your mother. You were still with your grandparents, and what got you from still being there to the next area in which you lived and or were transferred to or
What
transported to?
happened was that in 1944 was the last year I went to school there, and I finished 4 grades. And because the school closed down and we no longer went to school, these guys boogied out to Budapest, and Les went to Csongrád. I was there by myself, very lonesome. The only friend I had was Dubák Mishka, which was down the street he lived. So I played with him a little bit once in a while, but I was by then feeding the dogs and the cats and the chickens and the pigs, and Grandpa and I went out to the fields to harvest or do what we could to make a living, to grow things. But I miss these guys very much because
And
they went.
and then how did you get from there to be reunited with your mother
Oh,
and
these thieves came home.
Okay.
After a while, by the time the war ended in 1945, in fact, in the beginning of 1945, they was home already. Both of them came back. So then, that's what happened.
Yeah, let me go back a little bit while I was in school in Budapest. Actually, it was in Buda, which is the west side of the city. There was an incident. Oh, it was Christmas Eve.
Excuse me, but if you're gonna go back and tell this story, remind us that you had finished school for the summer. This
No.
is what you just told me.
He'd finished school for the fall semester.
Oh, you told me the last time that you had finished for the summer and you were back home and you didn't go back that fall.
Yeah. Because of school
Let
was
me
cold.
let me finish. While I was still in school. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was not in school at the time. What happened was, yes, I finished school, and I ended up going back down to Bucha
For the summer.
for the summer. In the meantime, the front lines had gone past my grandfather's place, moving west. And there was no way that I could get back to Budapest for my second year of school. But though some of the kids that were living on the west side of the front lines were able to get back for their second year in school. And that Christmas, which was 44, 44,
It was.
43, 43, no, it was 44.
Yeah, he came back from
44, anyway, that Christmas, some of the Nazis went into the boarding house where we lived.
And this is a
Well-
Catholic Franciscan boarding house.
Yes,
up there in.
and they wanted to see the children that were there. And
This is nighttime, evening, nighttime.
it was Christmas Eve. Yeah, actually, it was like almost midnight, I guess, is what I heard. And the director of the boarding home, who was also, of course, a priest, told them that the children are sleeping and they're not to bother them. So they hit the director on the head with the butt of a rifle, and they went and woke up all the children. And in their pajamas, they marched them down to the Danube River. And there were 13 of these children. And they shot them in the back. They fell into the river, and one of them actually dropped into the river, making believe like he was shot also. And he swam down some portion of the river and climbed out. And of course the river was very cold. There were ice chunks floating in the river. And he got out and went to one of the people that lived right near the river there and knocked on the door and told them what happened. And they got into a hospital. And he told the story of what happened as he knew to one of the Franciscan fathers went to the hospital and he told him the story. And where was I?
What happened to that boy?
Oh, anyway, that boy also died from exposure the next day. So this was one real sad incident. I knew all of these kids. They were, close to my age, or they were my age, most of them,
Yeah, I missed all this action.
So I just want to make a note here that I've looked this incident up, and it is actually documented on the internet in a list of Catholic institutions that helped the Jews during World War II in Hungary. There's many Catholic institutions, and they list this as a situation where the Nazis thought perhaps the Franciscans were hiding Jews in the boarding house,
I think they were
perhaps
too.
Jewish children,
Yeah.
and that's why they did this.
And they probably were. There were
Yeah.
probably Jewish
As,
children.
as a matter of fact, my mother gave my birth certificate to a Jewish family who had a son my age, and it was to make certain that he would, he was me.
Yeah.
Okay, and I never I never knew whatever happened to my birth certificate then, because we had to get another one from Monaco, so I have.
You have that?
Yeah, I have that.
Okay, next question. I think before we ask this question, we're going to have to.
No,
we
we're
only have
good.
1 minute.
We're good. No,
Okay.
11.
Okay, Rudy, we are getting close to now where you and Gus are going to be reunited with Anna and your new sister and your stepfather, because you're going to live now in Budapest with your family, correct?
No.
No,
Okay, so then can you lead us now the rest of the way Gus comes back? he's back with your grandparents, you're living there. I'm assuming that your schooling has kind of come to an end now?
Yeah, in 1944, I finished 4th grade. That's as far that schools closed down
And they closed down because of the war?
because of the war.
Okay.
Yeah, the Russians and the Germans came through one day, and with horses, drawn these guns, and the horses went in such skinny shape that one of the German guys put the head off and put it on the hip of the skinny horse.
These horses were owned by the Germans or by
The
the...
horses were owned, they were drawing their guns.
Yeah.
They pulling it.
Yeah.
But I said, well, how could they treat a animal like that, you know? I didn't like the Germans.
Yeah. Oh, I'm quite sure.
So that's what happened when they came through one day.
So at this point now, you're just surviving. I mean, you're just taking day by day,
Oh, we
trying
had
to...
food every day.
Yeah. So you had food.
Well, no, I'm
No,
kidding.
he's being facetious.
I know,
Didn't have any.
yeah. So now it's getting really tough.
Yeah.
And what month is it about that you saw this incident with the Germans?
Oh, in maybe towards the end of 44.
Okay, so it's the,
Beginning of 45, not 45 yet.
towards the end of the year. At
End
this
of the
point,
year.
you know that your mother's married. Had you met your stepfather at all?
No.
Okay. And you hadn't met
I
your
never
sister?
met my stepfather until we went to Romania,
Okay. So you...
which was May of 45, something like that.
Okay.
But there's a story where both of you boys left Budapest and took the train to Karczag
Yeah,
and then walked to Bucha.
yeah, we did.
What
that.
were you, when was that and when were you in Budapest?
Oh, what happened was we was up in Budapest in August of 1944. I remember that. But they bombed the crap out of us daily.
And why were you there? Were you
went
living there? Were you visiting?
I don't know why I went there, but I was there with Gus at your grandmother's house
Yeah.
on Polyetta Utsa. And we lived there with them guys, but like I say, they bombed us 2-3 times a day.
Was
Gus and I
Mary's
didn't like it.
was Mary's grandmother her paternal grandmother?
Yeah, her
Okay. So
paternal
you
grandmother.
had a chance to meet them then.
Oh yeah, I know him. I know her and I know Rosie.
And
But-
what were they like? How did they treat you?
They treated like we was part of the tribe, you
Okay.
know, like we were part of the family.
And they were
We
Jews.
ate.
You understood that you were visiting with Jews.
Maybe, Mary, that didn't matter to me.
I
if it was
understand it
Jew-
didn't matter to you,
Jews,
but-
dark, it didn't matter to me what
But did
they
it make
was.
you nervous understanding the war that you were then living with Jews?
It didn't bother me at all.
Okay.
It's fine with me. All I knew was Russians, Americans, and Germans.
Okay.
That's what bothered me, you know, mostly, and that's what was killing each other and at each other's throats. But I never got into, hey, this guy's a gypsy, this guy's a Jew,
I don't think
this
we
guy
should.
is Christian. I
Yeah,
hated them
I
all.
didn't really mean whether or not you had an issue with their religion as much as I meant
No,
you
they treated
understood
us
you
decent.
understood that Nazis were looking for Jews and you were residing with Jews.
Yeah.
Did that scare you?
No.
Okay.
Well, I don't know that he understood that.
Yeah, maybe he didn't
Yeah,
understand.
and
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
I don't think he understood that.
Like I say, it didn't matter to me who was chasing who. All I know is that Mom hid your dad for I don't know how long, a couple of months, I think underneath the tub.
Well, not under the tub. He was
But-
drinking tub water.
Yeah, he lived in the lounge area of the bathroom.
But I never did meet him
Yeah.
over there in Budapest.
But that wasn't the same time anyway.
That wasn't the same time.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Actually, your father,
Mary's
Mary,
father.
Yeah.
Mary, he was taken away to some camp to do labor, okay?
not to find him up.
So he wasn't there at the time Rudy and I were in Budapest with Mom, okay?
He called it a brick camp, I remember that.
So
A brick camp or a labor camp?
it was a labor camp. I don't know exactly what they were doing there. You know.
Probably making little rocks out of it.
But I think you're correct. I heard about brick making and it must be because he was telling some stories. He knew about bricks.
The brick story is that in August or September of '44, they were doing final push to round up Jews in Budapest, and they took the cohort, the chapat of Jews, to a brick factory.
Yeah.
And there's a story of my father escaping from that factory, and so if you heard about bricks, that's what you heard.
Yeah.
Prior to that, he was in a labor camp.
Oh yeah, he was in a labor camp from '41.
But like I say, I never did meet him until we went to Romania and
Okay.
after the war.
So you went to live with Grandma for a while. You went to live with your mother for a while in Budapest.
Yes.
And then what happened?
So then we were only there for a couple of weeks.
At that point, your stepfather had already gone to Romania.
No.
Is that-
No.
he
No.
had.
No.
Okay,
No.
so you were just you're only there for a couple of weeks, visiting, whatever you want to call it, visiting maybe.
Yeah. this was-
Vivi has been born at this point.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Vivi was not yet born.
1944, no.
Okay,
she was
so
not
Vivi
born.
was not yet born.
So this is
But-
43.
Oh,
But was Grandma married?
you was born in
Yes.
Not-
January
44.
44.
Yeah, she was born there.
married.
She was born already by the time we went to Budapest.
So then it was
That
40
in 1944.
So it's
She was
44.
a
Okay.
baby.
Oh, yeah.
She was a baby.
Yeah.
Okay. So now Vivi is born. You're in Budapest. Are you there thinking that you're there temporarily?
Yes.
Or you're there? Okay. You're thinking that you're there temporarily.
Yes.
But the verge of the war is very close to you. I mean, you're at your age. You're kind of catching on that this is bad times.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, Dad, you had at one point said that you witnessed Hungarians hanging from lampposts. I mean, so
But-
that's...
Yeah, and so like I say, this was in August of 1944. And Gus was in, and I was in Budapest for maybe a month,
Okay.
maybe 3 weeks,
I
I'm
don't
not
remember.
sure.
And the reason was it because it was the summer, so you went there to visit her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So, and then we boogied out back to Bucha.
Tell that story.
Oh, that was a good one. Gus and I took off. I think we went anyway, but most of the time we walked.
And Grandma sent you off.
No.
No,
Well, we went with the train
the train
from
to,
Budapest to the town of Karcag, which is about
15 miles, 10 miles from Bucha.
10 miles from Bucha. If it's that much, it's 12
That's
kilometers. not
Still a
even
long
10
walk
miles.
walking.
Yeah, okay, and when we got off the train, we didn't know exactly which way would be the best way to go. We wanted to stay off the main road. So we followed the river, which is the
That it, Joe.
Beretjo River. It's on the west side of Bucha. So we made it to the river.
Why'd you
And
want to
then-
stay off the roads?
Because we thought that it was dangerous, you know.
Bad guys on the road.
Yeah. So, anyway, we went down, we went south on the riverside and on the west side of the river, and there was a spot where there was a cable that stretched across the river. It wasn't very wide. The river was only maybe 25 feet or so.
But we didn't know how to swim yet.
You didn't know how to swim?
Not yet.
Country boys and you didn't know how to swim?
No.
Anyway, we had one suitcase with us, and okay, how are we gonna get across the river? So we were, I don't remember exactly whether Rudy was on my back or I was on his back, but we shimmied across this cable, and the suitcase, whoever was on the other one's back was holding the suitcase. And finally we got across, and then we said, well, to make it easy, we might as well just do that, just, you get on my shoulders and you hang onto the suitcase, and that way we don't both have to walk.
And then we took turns. he was sitting on my neck, and I was sitting on his neck with the guy who was holding on the other guy's neck, holding the suitcase. But we found a town where a big church finally showed up.
Yeah, we saw the church steeple
Of Bucha.
of Butcher.
Took a
So
beeline to it.
we headed for the steeple. And what gives God on the way, my Uncle Ferry was out there on one of the fields that my grandfather owned, you know, and, oh, what are you guys doing here and whatnot, you know, so they were really surprised.
They
We
weren't
came out
expecting
of nowhere, you know,
Yeah.
nobody knew we were coming.
Because you didn't call him on the cell phone and say you were on your
What?
way.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So Grandma basically said, okay, bye, and
That's right.
said, get on the train and find your way home.
Right. Yeah.
Amazing.
And then did she say, and try and send a letter when you get there that I know
She
you got
does
home?
a favor. I keep telling you, they bombed us
Right.
3,
She
4
wanted to get
times
you
a
out.
night. You know, not
Yeah.
wake your ass, go down the cellar, go back up, and boom, here they come again, you know. I think the Russians, the Americans, and the Germans all try to kill us.
And that was going on while you were there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we need to stop for one. Go.
Back in the fields.
So you meet Fetty in the fields?
Yes,
How many fields did Grandpa have?
3.
Couple of them, 3 I think.
3. And each field was how many acres?
I think an acre at least,
No,
maybe more.
I think the biggest one was like 7 acres, and the smallest one was, actually the smallest one was this one, where we met Ferry, and then he had some out in a big pasture on the northwest side of Butcher.
And Rudy, what was he growing in those fields?
Well, we grew haddock, which is alfalfa
Okay.
for the cows,
And-
and we grew corn.
And
Was
we
it
grew
sold,
wheat
or was it for his own use?
for our own use.
It was for your
No,
own
not
use?
only.
But you
for-
also sold it. I mean, was it
He
a way for
also
him to make
I don't
income?
know who sold them, all I know is we ate what we grew.
There was a point in time for both of you that things got really, really tough. Food-wise, clothes-wise, you name it. I remember Dad telling a story to, I think it was Ava or Olivia, who was doing a little report once about a time where he didn't even own shoes, and he really had to wrap his feet almost in rags.
That-
And
I
can you
went
tell
to
me
school
about,
like that.
can you both tell us a little bit about what year that was, what was going on in Hungary that got it so difficult and destitute, and how it affected you both? So let's start with Rudy.
Well, to begin with, I never got brand new shoes because either Lottie handed it down to Gus and Gus handed it down to me. By the time I got shoes, it was pretty worn out, if it was any shoe at all. But yeah, I went to school sometimes with no shoes. I wrapped my foot in rag and went to school with the dog on a sled sometimes. And one time I did this.
So it was snowing if you're going on a
It was
sled.
snowing in the winter time, and I got the dog going, but there was a cat out there. And guess what? Phil took off after the damn cat,
And the
And-
sled took off after the dog.
and I went. He drew the sled. So it turns out I was late to go to school because the dog chased the cat, and I didn't get time to get. Guess what? The teacher gave me a licking because I was late. So I go home and tell Grandpa I was late to school today. He gave me another licking. So from then on, I never told him I was late again. So I
only
only
got
got
one.
one licking, at
Yeah.
school. That's what happened one time.
Wow.
And I used to, I fire up the old stove. We had an old pot-belly stove in school. I was the one that handled the firing up. And one time it didn't come across, and I opened the door, it wouldn't start. I look in there, all I wanted to get, and took my hair off.
Rudy, did you get lunch at school, or did you bring lunch?
No, wait.
What did you eat during a
I
whole...
had a friend, his name was Miller Peachstone, and he used to bring some eats to school. but they didn't like him because he was a little Jewish kid. But I beat up the kids on him because I was pretty tough,
And you were
and he
hungry.
gave me half his lunch,
Yeah.
many times.
That was a good little partnership.
Yeah, good partnership.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gave me a little bit of,
Protection.
yeah, protection money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Okay, and Dad, you remember some of these difficult times for you?
Yeah,
and how they affected-
the first time I remember was while I was still going to gymnasium, uh, from the boarding house. My mother came to visit me, and she met me at the school, where I was going to the gymnasium. I had walked from the boarding house to school, and she met me there. Anyway,
In Budapest,
in Buda.
in Buda.
Anyway, she looks at me, and she looks at my shoes, and my shoes, the sole was hanging off, and I was walking in the snow.
Flapping.
Yeah, floppy. It had like a mouth,
Yeah.
And then she says, oh, she's gonna get me some shoes. Well, they had rations. And what happened was she got the ration ticket for the shoe. But there was no place on earth that she could give this voucher to anyone that sold shoes, that had shoes. They didn't have shoes, So
It was useless.
it was useless, So I didn't have shoes. And that's the way it was all throughout Hungary.
How old were you at that time?
I was 11.
So the reason it was
Yeah.
like that in Hungary was because for some reason, things weren't getting into Hungary, is that right? Or the goods of Hungary were going somewhere else. What was happening?
The problem was that the Nazis have taken out most of the produce and most of the goods from Hungary
They
for their
requisitioned,
war effort.
they requisitioned everything for
Yeah, right.
for themselves.
And then, of
Russians
course,
were
when
the
the
two-
Russians came in, they did the same
Yeah.
thing. They had. I remember when the Russians came in, some neighbor up the street, near the end of the street, he had a couple of lambs
This is in Bucha.
in Bucha. And the Russians, they slaughtered his two lambs. They had a big feast on it. So the poor guy didn't have any more lamb. And that's the way it was. Then another time, my grandmother, they came to the house, 2 Russian soldiers, to my grandmother's house. And they needed to stay somewhere to sleep. So they decided they're gonna stay at grandma's house. And they sent Rudy with a Tommy gun to go over to the neighbors and get some milk.
A burp gun in my back.
Yeah.
And
A
the
what?
guy was drunk.
A what in your back?
A burp gun,
A-
you know.
A burp
Tommy
gun.
gun
A
is
Tommy
what they
gun,
call
yeah.
it,
Yeah.
okay? And
They
so,
explain that. They pointed it at you,
At
no,
my
no,
back.
no.
at your back,
Yeah,
and said,
go get milk from next door. They didn't have a cow. And the guy was drunk on top of that.
The neighbor.
No,
the guy
Oh.
was drunk.
soldier.
Russian
The soldier was
Ah.
drunk.
And my goosebump, I had goosebump up and down my back because you don't like a goddamn guy pointing a burp gun at your back that got 76 rounds in it,
And Rudy, how old were you at this time?
I was
11?
11, yeah.
And you understood the gravity of the situation. You knew this was
I
not
told
kidding
you,
around.
I had goosebumps up my back.
What?
So-
How'd you get out of this situation?
I went to, told him they got no cow.
Did he back off and
He
leave?
backed off, he drank more.
no, they didn't leave, they
They
stayed.
stayed.
They stayed at grandma's house, and grandma, while they were sleeping, had some bread and some bacon and a little bit of kolbas, and she put it in their backpack, you know. And then my grandfather asked her, "Why did you do that?" And she says, "Because those soldiers had mothers."
See, her son, Uncle Mike, was a soldier in the Hungarian army. He fought at Stalingrad until he got wounded. Somebody tossed a grenade next to him and he went deaf. But his hearing came back after a while.
That's Uncle Mihai.
Uncle Mike.
Yeah.
So he fought, you say he fought at Stalingrad, that
Yeah.
means he fought
He fought the
against
Russians.
the Russians.
And
Yeah.
but he was an American citizen. They had no right to draft him.
That's right.
But is that what did they draft him as an American?
No,
No,
as a
as
a
Oh, they
Hungarian.
drafted. Oh, they drafted.
No, if he was an American, they would have fought with
But
the
it was
Russians.
it was through his residency that they
He had no
used.
choice.
He had no choice.
He had
Yeah.
no choice. He had to go.
Either he'd go or they'd kill him,
Yeah.
you know, that
Yeah.
it was just that simple.
Yeah.
And when the Russians came to the house, to Grandma's house, how did you communicate?
Oh, Grandpa knew pretty well, got along with the Russian. In fact, I still remember the words that he'd say to him. Kiedy bude vojna kaput? That means, when is the war gonna end? I remember those words from Grandpa to these Russian guys.
Kaput.
Kaput is the end.
Kaput.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last couple minutes that we have left on the video, we're gonna talk about the details and the incidences that took you back, that took you on your final journey out of Hungary. What led up to that? What are the incidences that led up to that? And then how was it decided that you would leave? And were you leaving your grandparents? Were you leaving Budapest? By which area of Hungary did you make that journey?
Well, we left Bucha in a cart, horse-drawn
And
cart.
what were the incidents that led up to the idea that you needed to leave?
My mother always wanted to come back to the United
Yeah.
States.
Did you know that?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, she made no bones about it.
got it.
And the war was over on May the 15th. And Mom made plans immediately to get out of Hungary. She came down to Bucha at the end of May, which was like only a couple of weeks after the war ended. And she gathered things from neighbors and people in Bucha, you know, food, what have you. And she found this fellow that had a horse-drawn cart that was willing to take us to the Romanian border. And so we loaded up. That was on the 5th of June of 1945.
We were just talking about the incidences that led to the decision that it was going to be necessary to leave Hungary altogether. Can you tell me a little bit about what led to the decision and who made the decision?
Well, it was not me.
Okay.
It was Mom, I imagine so. And we were gonna pack up and Uncle Mike was supposed to go with us. And as far as I remember, he got one foot on a cart, on a horse cart that we were going with, and he got off and he never came with us. But the rest
He
of
was
us-
going to go with you to come to the United States?
No.
Yeah, the intent was for him to also
Also
come to
come
the
here.
United States.
And
yes.
who was on the cart?
Well, Gus, me, and Lily, and Mom.
Okay, the four of you.
And the
four-
driver?
And a driver. I don't remember him too much.
You remember anything that was packed on the cart with the intent that we're not coming back here? So was it clothes? Was it food? Was there any other
Well, I
belongings?
remember
All of those things.
we had food. I remember because we had a goose leg that I ate
My,
on a train that we caught later on. It was called the Rapid, wasn't it? That train name? And that went to Bucharest. But what happened was that when we got to the border, it was kind of open. Everybody was shaking hands because they beat the dog shit out of the Germans. So the Russians and the Hungarians, the border was open and away we went.
What was the date of your arrival?
Oh, sometime in end of April, I imagine, or a couple of days.
It couldn't have been because Gus said you left on June 5th.
Well, I thought it was April, but it could be.
Okay.
All I could tell you is the apricots were green in Butcher when we left.
Got it.
Okay.
So
And
it was at least somewhere in the spring, not quite summer.
and
Not quite so.
and there's a story of Ma meeting up with the border guard. So who wants to tell that story?
Let Gus tell him.
Okay, first of all of this came through because of my mother. She, like I told you before, she was an American citizen. She wanted to come back here all the time. And so we packed up in Butcher. She got not only some clothing she packed for us, but she got ducked down for pillows that she was going to have pillows made with this duck down in the United States, which actually happened.
I remember that.
But, so we left on the 5th of June and we headed for the Romanian border. And when we got to the border, supposedly border, because no one really knew where the real borders were at the time. It was such a confusion that people did not know that. So there were two Romanian guards,
Romania.
Romanian guards, supposedly at the border. And when my mother saw them, she says to them, "What are you doing here?" She says, "We just passed the border a couple of miles ago on our way to here. We are already in Romania." So these guys grabbed their guns and they ran to the supposedly border, 2 miles up the road, because they were in the wrong place.
So they were a little off on their geography.
And that's how we got into Romania.
But the reality is, she didn't know where it was. She was just trying to get over the border.
She-
Exactly. She didn't. She just.
She scammed them.
She just bamboozled these guys. That's
Right.
it.
Gus, how difficult would it have been to cross? She was an American citizen.
Probably not.
Not
Okay.
too difficult.
But she wasn't gonna
Take
take
any
that
chances.
chance, you
Okay,
know.
got it.
And at that time, Hungary has been liberated by Russia.
Yes.
So Russia immediately occupied Hungary? Is that what happened? Or
Well, Russia occupied Hungary on the way through to Germany. You know, their troops were going through, and the occupation was happening as they were moving forward.
and the Romanians were also occupied by Russians, or no?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
In fact, we went swimming in Zhilova in the river with the Russian guys, with the horses. They also bathed the horses in the river, and we frolicked in the river with the Russian guys, naked.
So isn't there a story, because you're now already in Bucharest, and isn't there
No, we're not in Bucharest yet.
Oh.
We got on a train called the Rapid
Yes.
from Arad, which was the Hungarian Actually, it's now Romania, but it was a Hungarian city originally. So this train was the fastest train they had in Europe at the time. And it went from Arad to Bucharest. And on the way, I remember some sheep herder was on the train track with a bunch of sheep, and the rapid never stopped. It just, I don't know, it bowled over I don't know how many of his sheep, you know.
Yeah.
Just went right through. And anyway, so we got into Bucharest, and that's when Rudy first met his stepfather.
In Bucharest.
Because
Our
you'd already met him.
stepfather. Huh?
You'd already met him.
I had met him in Budapest prior to that, yes.
When did you meet Kalman?
I met him while I was going to school on one occasion. I don't remember just when, but when I was in Buda going to school. So he had rented a bedroom and a living room. I believe it also had a kitchen in the town of Jilava.
That was outside of Bucharest, a little farm town.
East of Bucharest, about, I don't know, maybe 12 miles east of Bucharest. And so we stayed there, and he was also living there with us. He traveled from there to Bucharest to work. He worked for some firm in the
Jewish
finance industry. I don't know exactly.
I thought it was the Jewish Joint Distribution Center.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know what kind of work he did.
But
Gus and I went to Bucharest. I remember a couple of times we had a pair of roller skates. He got one and I got one. And we rolled along. You
mean one skate each?
One skate each. And we went from Jilava to Bucharest a couple of times on the roller skates. A couple of times we flagged down Russian trucks and they stopped for us because we wore our American patches and they gave us a ride to.
Where did you get the American patches?
My mom made them for us.
And
American flags.
Oh, and you weren't asked at that point to prove your that you were actually American citizens at all? No. You weren't asked. So basically, just by wearing it was enough to give you that.
Some Russian trucks stopped and give us a lift.
Now, in the meantime, you were two American kids who didn't speak a word of English.
Exactly.
Correct?
We didn't even speak Romanian at the time.
Yeah. So, Rudy, now when you got to Romania, you understood we're not going back. We're on a journey, and we're not going back. And you, at that point, you hadn't had that much contact with your mother. So, what was your relationship like with your mom at that point, and what were your feelings about the fact you got used to her? Okay. And so, was it kind of something where you said, "Well, I'm with my brother, and as long as he's going, I'm going, and it'll be okay"?
But don't forget, Gus and I were enterprising guys. We go out in the field, come home with potatoes, sometimes with tomatoes.
So basically, your bond was the tightest thing of the whole arrangement. I mean, really, your relationship with your mother wasn't nearly what it was 10 years later. I mean, it was really that you two were together, you're going to go on this journey, and we have each other, and we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah, we always got along very good, you know, the two of us.
When you went
even today.
Yeah. When you went to Bucharest, did you think it was going to be a short stop there, or did you think you were going to, get roots there?
We didn't know how long it was going to be. What happened was Romania at the time did not have an American embassy. So Mom got in touch through letters with the Swiss embassy in Paris, France. And the Swiss embassy was kind enough to help her get in touch with the American embassy in Paris, and they did the paperwork for us to get admission back to the United States.
How long do you think that took?
Well, we arrived in Romania,
June.
I think June the 7th,
Of what year?
45.
45.
Okay,
Like a couple of days after we left Bucha.
okay,
Yeah.
got it.
And from Geneva, Mom got in touch with, like I say, the Swiss embassy. And of course, she didn't know what the response was going to be, when and whatnot. And it took until the middle of November sometime that she found out that we were going to board a ship in Constanța, Romania, which is a seaport on the Black Sea. And that, of course, we didn't know any of the itinerary or of that ship or anything, but of course, after we got on, we found out that the ship was going to go to Russia first, to a seaport called Novorossiysk. And
Picked up chrome there.
and the ship picked up chrome
Or
ore, yeah, from there, and oh, it took days for them to load the ship, and in the meantime, some Russian military people came on board. You know, they wanted to. I don't know. They were not happy that we were there for some reason.
You specifically, you, grandma, or just people in general, or your
American.
family?
Just the
ship.
fact that it was an American ship.
ship.
Okay.
It was a Liberty ship.
And they were going to do some, I don't know, nasty things, you know, and the captain of the ship told them to get off the ship. And they did.
Wow.
So
Okay,
that was an incident. Then from Novorossiysk, we went to Turkey. The destination was supposed to be Samsun, the city on the seaport in Turkey. And what happened was we had a very, very bad weather on the Black Sea going from Russia to Turkey. I mean, it was horrendous. Waves, I believe they were as high as 50 feet, you know. It was like being in a hurricane, you know, very bad. And it was winter time.
We got lost.
So instead of reaching the destination of Samsun, we ended up in a small seaport called Uniye
That was
in
on the
Turkey,
African side.
which was quite east of Samsun. So and we went on shore in Turkey. They had a big bazaar and what have you. It was very nice. And that was the first time that I had an orange.
Red orange.
Since I don't
Ever.
remember when, you know. I think when I was a kid one time I had an orange. You know, so, but then Then I think next day we boarded, went to Samson. In Samson, the ship picked up tobacco, Turkish tobacco.
Yeah.
And then from there, oh, we also went off the ship in Samson and visited the town. And again, it was very nice. We had some of the Turkish candies, and that was one place where I had some Turkish coffee. And this Turkish coffee was so thick, you could just about stand a teaspoon in it, you know.
So let me guess, you
It
didn't
was like
Syrup.
very heavy syrup, and it was very strong. But they have a very little demi-tasse coffee cups that they serve it in.
Yeah, we went across to the shore with this sailor that was on a ship, and his name was Rusty,
No, Dusty.
Dusty.
Dusty
And
was.
he'd get money, he'd strap a couple of 45s to his leg, and he'd sell that, and he went to see the girls over there. Gus and I was roaming in the market.
He was an American soldier or American
Oh,
ship?
He was a Navy guy.
He was
American
Navy.
ship.
Did he?
It
Did
was
you?
a Navy ship. It wasn't like a merchant ship or anything. It's a Navy
No, he
ship.
It was a Navy ship,
And
yeah.
did you have money to spend?
Oh,
No,
I didn't know.
no.
No.
I don't know how much the orange cost, but it couldn't have been that much. But I think the Dusty or Rusty is the one that supplied us with the orange.
How did the staff that were on the ship treat these two early teenage boys? Because you were about 12 and 13
Oh,
then?
we had the run of the ship.
So you're about 12 and 13? Is that about your ages? Yeah.
We
I
had-
spent my 12th birthday
was-
on the ship.
It was
December 16.
probably the best cruise we could have ever had.
So they
It
embraced
lasted-
you. They
Only
embraced you.
lasted
Oh.
us 40 days.
And
But you didn't speak English and they couldn't really talk to you.
Oh, it didn't matter.
and there was enough food.
Oh,
you
I
can-
gotta tell you about the food.
Yeah, please.
We sat down, we usually ate with the captain and the officers of the deck. And
Did that include your mother?
I asked for bread. And they bring this white bread out. I thought it was cake. Because I had never seen white bread before. And then they said, what would you like? The first time I remember, and I says, Mom says, it boiled dog. Boiled dog means dead animal. Boiled dog. Dog is a dead animal. So I said, I want boiled dog. Yeah. But they bring me soft boiled egg, you know.
How did you like the soft
Oh, I
boiled egg?
loved it.
Yeah.
But
By the way,
grub was good.
Yeah.
you need to know the name of the ship was the Warren Delano.
I wrote that down.
Okay.
In fact, I got a menu, a Christmas menu at home
Right.
on that thing. Yeah.
So, in the meantime now I'm assuming your mom, Rudy, is speaking to you in Hungarian. But are you catching on that she's able to speak to everybody on the ship?
Oh, you know, when you're young like that, you associate with people, you pick up things.
So you're already starting to
Plus,
pick
I
up.
almost, in the 6 months we was in Romania, we spoke pretty good
That's. I was
Romanian.
going to ask you about whether or not. How did you get by in Romania? I'm
Fine.
assuming. I'm going to go back for just a minute, Rudy, to your time in Romania before you got on the ship, because
Yeah.
we kind of covered that a little quickly. I'm assuming since it was only June to November, you did not attend school.
No.
Because, and where were you living for that 6 months?
In Zilovo, that little town outside of Bucharest.
And who did Grandma know somebody there? How did you get a
My-
house?
my
rented
father
the
was
house.
there.
Okay, so it was the house he was renting. You were living
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, got it.
And I wanted to clarify, when Grandma started to, when she began the process of trying to get back to the United States, what was the idea about what was going to happen to Clarence in that time? Where was
We
he
didn't
going
know,
to go?
we didn't know yet.
for sure.
Was she in her communication, was she saying, and I have this husband, I want him to
Of
come
course,
with me?
yeah.
That was the
Yeah,
idea?
however, because he was not a citizen, they had to establish whether it was okay for him to come to the States at all.
So she was probably hoping if
So
she
it took-
got residency, she could then
Yeah.
get him.
Yeah, so after she got to the States, she applied for him to come to the States. And it took 2 years.
Yeah, he got there in 47,
40
48.
How old is Vivi at the time you're on the ship?
She was a pup. She was about 14 months.
Could you just go back? How did Ma prove that she was a U.S. citizen?
Through the embassy.
Oh, she had her own birth certificate.
She had a birth certificate.
She had, but I thought that she gave her baptismal certificate to Rosie. She kept her
That's
birth
right.
certificate. Okay, it
That's
was the
right.
baptismal certificate to Rosie.
Of course, Mom was born in Pennsylvania, a big town called Fairchance.
No, York Run,
York Run.
York Run.
Okay.
So,
which is in Fairchance County.
Rudy, do you think your mother knew when she got to New York where she would live, or did she have any friends? Did she
Of
have
course not,
any
no.
contacts?
No, she
So
just,
basically, you're gonna get off this boat
Ship.
in New York,
Yeah, we did.
and you're gonna just, give yourself a blessing and hope that there's
Well,
a
no,
bed for
for
the
one,
night.
first thing, because Vivi was an alien.
Mm.
She was a subversive alien, age 1.5 years old or something like that. We went to Ellis Island for 2 weeks until they cleared her that she was not gonna subvert the United States.
And Ma had to swear that I wouldn't become a woman until we
Okay, okay, we're starting again, and we left off.
We're just entering Ellis Island
can
with
we-
Vivi as an alien.
But
Okay.
can we back up a second? I want to just go back to when you left Romania. What was assumed with Grandma's husband at the time? What was he going to do?
He's
What-
gonna come later.
Okay, so he was going to stay in Romania?
Yeah.
And work.
And work.
Okay, so he would stay in Romania until she was able to communicate with him that he could come.
Yeah, we landed in Ellis Island in the United on January 6th, 1946. Is when I
That was a
remember
long
when we
boat
got
ride.
it
there.
was actually January the 8th.
1946.
And you left when?
We left November 29th,
25th.
25th. We got here a couple of 40 days later.
And Ma was pregnant with Lexi.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell the story of how Vivi almost flew out the porthole?
No, it wasn't Vivi.
Oh, I thought it was
No,
Vivi.
it was the Polish girl.
Romanian.
No,
She
no,
was
no.
Romanian.
I thought it was Vivi.
It was Vivi that flew almost. What happened is they had an apple crate. And I dragged Vivi around in the apple crate. And one time, the apple crate got cut on a weld on her deck. So I gave it a good yank and Vivi went flying.
Out the porthole.
Out
To
the,
the porthole, but I cut her leg. And I didn't tell Mom for years later because she would have killed me.
Yeah.
so you're.
But there's another
The
story.
story was the little girl.
Oh,
Yeah, what
She was
happened,
bait.
what happened when we got to the agency? We saw a lot of jellyfish in the water.
A GNC.
A GNC.
And we wanted to,
Yeah,
we
oh.
wanted to get one of those. So we found a bucket and a rope. And son of a gun, we put the bucket through the rope hole and with the rope, and it missed the water by about, I don't know, 1.5 foot or so, We just couldn't get it down enough. So Rudy got this bright idea, why don't we get
Icky.
Iki?
that was
Iki
it.
was a little girl, I think she was maybe 11 years old. She was a little bit younger than we were. To hold the rope, and we'll hold her legs, We'll push her out through the rope hole, and she can hang on to the rope and the bucket.
So get a jellyfish.
So we did that,
That jellyfish.
and
it
she actually did get a jellyfish. It was difficult, but
Where was her mother?
So, so we pulled her back through the rope hole, grabbed the rope, and pulled the jellyfish up. We got our jellyfish.
Yeah.
What do you do with the jellyfish?
Examined it.
Examined it.
And
But
then threw it back.
You
in
see,
the
what
ocean.
happened at the time, they still had, in the water, they had mines. and our guys would get their rifle and then bang, bang, bang till they blow the damn mines up. So we went running to them.
But this was actually in the Mediterranean.
In the Mediterranean.
Or even before we got to the Mediterranean, it was in the Bosporus. You know, that's a connection between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, you know, the Bosporus.
Narrow gap.
And
Yeah.
the mines that you're talking about, were those in the Mediterranean?
In the water.
They were in the water, in the Bosporus area.
Okay, and they would have been put there by whom?
More than likely, the Germans.
German.
And they were visible?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they floated just,
They had prongs on them, you know, and all that. These
So
guys-
why have mines that are visible?
Well, they didn't
Well,
probably have the
yeah,
technology to
because
take them
you
much
don't see
deeper
them.
and
you don't see them at
yeah.
night.
You don't see
Yeah.
them at
And
night?
if they're
Okay.
too deep, then the boat will go right over
So
it.
the boat didn't travel at night?
Oh,
Well,
we showed
it so
them.
happened we went through there during the daytime, so
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah,
whether
perhaps.
they
The guys
traveled
blew up the
at night
mines
or
with
not.
their rifle.
Okay.
Okay, so now now we're going back forward again. You are back at Ellis Island, Rudy, and you have
Not
to
yet.
stay there.
Not yet,
Okay.
not yet.
Any
Right.
other adventures on the
Yeah,
boat?
What happened was, when we got into the Atlantic Ocean, the boat broke down. And we drifted south almost to the equator before they fixed the boat up so we could come back to New York.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
what happened.
So that was one of the reasons that this was 40 days long.
Yeah.
But there was enough food on the boat.
Oh, yeah.
Plenty. Grub was never a problem on the boat. In fact, the first time I stepped on a boat, I thought it's gonna tip.
And it was going to be your
Just
fault.
like a canoe, you know, I said, I gingerly stepped on that damn thing, I don't wanna tip the damn thing. But that's, I didn't know better, you know.
And how big was this thing? Give us an idea. I mean, you said you ran on it back and forth, so I'm assuming
Oh,
it was
we-
really big.
Well, it was a Liberty ship.
Okay, so it was
That's, from that you can probably get on the internet and find out how big a Liberty ship was.
Yeah.
Incidentally, after we got to Ellis Island, the boat broke in two and sank
Out on the Pacific.
out in the Pacific.
Did they lose
But
any
a
lives?
month about later.
Well,
after
we don't
got-
really know that.
We don't know for sure when.
Okay, Rudy, so now you've gotten back to into the
Now we are on
harbor.
Ellis Island.
Wait,
Yeah,
can you
Ellis Island.
remember when you came within sight of the United States?
And you
Yes.
saw the Statue of Liberty.
And
Yes.
we went right by it.
Did you have any idea what that was? Was
In
Grandma
fact,
telling you?
we were right next to it.
Ellis Island next to the Statue of Liberty.
What did it, were you excited or what did you feel?
Well, we got to a new place.
You're happy to get off the boat now? Ready?
Not yet.
Now, in Ellis Island, what happened was,
So they drop you off at Ellis Island.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what happened in
There's
Ellis
an
Island,
alien.
Yeah.
what happened in Ellis Island was, they got all of Mom's credentials, information, and whatnot, and they gave her assistance. They found her a place. First, we lived in a hotel when we got to the city of New York. It was a couple of policemen that got us from Ellis Island to Manhattan. Okay, they took us with a police car to.
Gus, don't count. But Ma had all kinds of luggage. I mean,
She didn't have all that kind of luggage. She had
She did.
some luggage.
I
She had a
thought,
lot of luggage.
yeah, she had a lot of luggage.
Yeah,
Yeah. So all this luggage fit into the police car?
I don't know. I don't remember how the luggage
Maybe
got.
they got their two cars for all we know.
Yeah, we don't
But
know.
nothing got lost. Everything was safe.
She got everything. Yeah.
Wow. You know, that alone is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We stayed at a place called Hotel Aberdeen on 34th Street.
Hotel Aberdeen?
32nd Street.
Hotel Aberdeen?
Hotel Aberdeen.
Aberdeen on
Oh,
32nd.
Street.
32nd
Because
Street.
Empire State was on the 34th Street.
So you saw the Empire State
Oh,
Building.
right next to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we lived in the hotel, I think for about a month.
And how did Grandma have money for this?
She got assistance.
She had assistance. What happened was, I don't know how much money she got, you know, but she got a certain amount of money, and she had to agree to pay that. It was a loan, and she had to agree to pay that back monthly.
She was paying it for
And it was, I know she was paying $17 a month for many years, you know, to pay that loan off. Of course, you can imagine that in 1946, the value of the dollar was quite high, you know. I mean, it was only 5 cents for a bus ride, you know.
And you could go
And you
from
could
Staten
go-
Island to the Bronx and back on that 5 cents.
Yeah. So
And-
it was fabulous, you know. So the $17 was a lot of money.
And going back to the ride on the ship, was that something she received assistance for too? Or was she?
She had to pay for,
that.
she had to pay for her. She didn't have to pay for us. She had to pay. You know, that is a funny thing about the United States citizens. If you're a citizen and you have, and the government pays your fare to repatriate, you have to pay that money back. But if you are a foreigner and the government picks you up and takes you here or brings you here with an airplane, you know, no charge. It's free.
So
You
were
know,
you free
my-
because you were not a citizen?
No, he was a citizen.
No,
Because
they
you
were.
well, so you were free because you were minors.
Yes.
Minors, okay.
Yeah. And you know, like my aunt Helen came later, you know, and Uncle Louis didn't have to pay anything, you know. I don't know if Aunt Helen, maybe by that time, maybe she didn't have to pay anything either, but.
Because she
but
was
I'm-
repatriating.
And she was a
US
refugee.
Yeah.
In 1956 that happened.
No, oh, you're talking about Cato in 56. Helen
Helen was later.
and Louis came in 71
Yeah, right.
or 74.
They escaped during the revolution.
No, Cato did.
Anyway, we're getting off the subject here, so.
Could we go back to Ma leaving Budapest with all this luggage? Because
She didn't have the luggage in Budapest,
But-
she had the luggage in Bucha. That's where she picked up all the things that she needed for this trip.
okay, but my understanding is that she leaves Budapest with Vivi, and that the train that she left on, she had to wait. She had to find a place on that train, and then she had to secure the place on the train with whatever luggage she had and her daughter, and wait for several hours before that train left the Budapest station. And to me, it's phenomenal that she could do that because, you know,
Hey, she was lucky the train ran.
she was lucky the train ran, right. So you've never heard stories about her.
No.
Um,
Oh, no.
I heard the story about Hashi.
could you tell that story?
Yeah. Well, she had Vivi, of course, and herself to come to Bucha. And like you said, she didn't know exactly what train, what not, but finally she did get onto a train that was heading east. And she had to fight her way on the train to find a place to even sit down. It's not because of her luggage. It was because the train was so full of people
Right.
that she just couldn't, you know.
And
Yeah.
let's explain why suddenly is the train so full? What's happening?
Because people were leaving Budapest after the war.
Yeah.
Budapest.
Because they felt like they could
That's
safely
right.
go
They
back
knew
to the
my
country,
grandma
or
got the elbow.
Yeah, don't forget, the war was just over, like 2 weeks ago. And people had nothing. So they had to get out to Budapest to go to families that they knew somewhere else.
Usually in
You know?
small towns.
Right.
And
I mean,
Budapest had been bombed to hell. And essentially, there had been no commerce in Budapest for months, maybe, well, weeks, certainly
Yeah.
weeks, maybe
All
months.
all the bridges that went across the Danube were in the river. You know,
Yeah.
you
So-
couldn't even get across the river.
So people were leaving Budapest en masse to go to where there was
Wherever,
food.
yeah.
Right.
Because there was food someplace else. In Budapest, there was no grub much.
Right. And Gus, you told the story about you and Mom going back to Budapest, so leaving Bucha with eggs and hens and meat, and was it Geza who drove the cart?
No, it was Uncle Louis.
Louis. So Lajos Bácsi then drove the cart, I suppose a horse-drawn cart,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Yeah. And you slept in some haystacks, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then you got to Budapest, and go ahead.
Well, Mom picked up different things, you know, mostly food from Bucha. And one of those items were eggs. And she told me that I should go down on the street with some of these eggs, which I did, and try and sell them. Well, there was a fellow that saw these eggs, you know, I don't know, a couple of dozen eggs or 1 dozen, I don't remember how many, but he saw these eggs and he wanted to know how much money I wanted for them. I says, I don't really know. I says, but I could trade. Mom said I could trade for something. So he says, well, how about a suit?
A suit?
And
So
how
he was
old
a
are you?
tailor or something?
I was 12, you know,
Did you want a suit?
for an egg. 1 egg, not 2.
Oh,
Oh, one
One
egg,
egg.
a suit. Oh, man.
Okay.
Grub was scarce.
he was hungry.
He was scarce down
Was
there.
it his own suit off his back?
Well, no, he had a suit somewhere and brought it over.
Did you do?
Yeah, gave him an egg.
One egg?
Yeah, and Ma was
Generous?
Ma did this to get money because she knew that she was going to be leaving Hungary, and so she was getting
Yeah,
money.
but she was able to sell the suit. See?
So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
wait, so when this happens, this trip from Bucha to Budapest to do the selling, war's over?
Yeah,
The war is just over.
yeah.
So she comes and gets you, because you're in Bucha when the war's over, correct?
Yeah,
She
yeah, I
said
went-
that.
I
It's
went
food,
with-
and they came
I
back.
went with Uncle Louis and her
And came to
went to
Budapest.
Budapest, and then we went back
Back to Bucha.
to Bucha.
And what about the story of the Germans coming into Budapest that you saw?
Oh, okay, that was in 1944 spring, probably in the month of March. I was just getting out of school, going back to the boarding house, and we hear this big rumble. Couldn't imagine what it was. So a bunch of us kids, you know, there was a street parallel to the main highway that came from Vienna to Budapest. And this is the highway that the Germans used. And next to that highway there was a street that was parallel to it. And then another street further down that connected to that highway. So we kids, we all ran, hearing this big rumble. We ran down and over to the highway, and here comes German troops with motorcycles, tanks, trucks, you know. I mean, it just a long line of was a big procession coming through. So that's when the Germans came into Hungary.
And you witnessed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they went through Bucha,
Oh yeah, they went all through the country
all
from
through
there.
the country, and then they fought the Russians over there, and then the Russians pushed them back.
Do you know of any Jews that were in Bucha that were taken in the sweep?
They were not taken. However, I remember that one of the families was really close with Mom. That's the fellow that Rudy was talking about, the young fellow that was going to school with him.
Yeah.
Well, their parents owned a store. It was like a little grocery store, you know. And we visited them quite often, actually. And Mom knew them from long before, you know. They were close. And I don't know how Mom helped those, but I think what happened was that they actually ended up changing their name. You know, I don't remember what their name was before, but they changed their name, and that's how they were never really bothered with the Nazis or the Germans, you know.
Were they the only Jewish family in Bucha?
There was another family that we knew. This fellow also owned a grocery store. I think there were maybe 3 grocery stores in Bucha, and yeah, there was the
3.
yeah.
I only know 2.
Well, there was the Soviet Gazette was one.
Well, yeah, that was one.
Do you remember the names of any of the families?
You know, I don't.
Well, the one who was a friend of Rudy's. Say his name again.
Miller Pichta, Stephen Miller was his last name.
How do you spell that, Rudy? Do you know?
M-I-L-E.
Okay.
Mila.
Yeah, but see, that was already
That was
already
probably changed.
the new
Yeah, yeah.
name.
I didn't know they changed their name.
Yeah.
All I know is that I got some fushies from him once in a while when they picked on him, and I beat up the good guys. He was a friend of mine.
So this other family, Geza, worked for them for a while in the grocery store. My uncle Geza, you know. So that's how we knew them, you know. And
Do you know stories of Geza bringing food into Budapest for Ma and Vera?
No.
no.
No. And did you meet Vera in Budapest? Did
Yeah.
you see
Oh,
her?
Yeah, yeah.
She lived with her boyfriend.
Yeah. So her boyfriend was a Turkish Jew, right?
Turkish guy, his name was
Marci.
uh,
Marci.
Yeah, Morzi. Yeah,
But I don't remember his last name.
and
I
did
remember his last name if I could just think of it.
Boris.
and he had carpets. He was a carpet dealer, right?
Yeah, he was.
I
Yeah.
think so.
Wasn't that Vera's boyfriend?
Yeah.
Yes.
Were you close to her? Yeah, I know.
Oh,
I
very-
know
very
later
far.
on you were.
Yeah, I was very close to Veronica.
Was
In
she a
fact,
good aunt?
Actually, what happened
Oh, yeah.
was her house got hit with a bomb,
With the
and it was upstairs, and the guy got cut in 2.
Yeah.
Going up the
And didn't
stairs.
she
Wait,
trip
which-
over him going up the stairs?
which
Yeah.
guy, Marzi?
No,
No, it was a soldier.
Somebody who lived there. I don't know who that it was, but that's where she lived, not too far from where we was
Uh huh.
in Budapest.
So Palai Ede was near the opera.
Yeah, not
And
that,
not
I don't
far.
know about the opera. I know where Veronica lived because we went there a couple of times.
What did Veronica do for money? What was
Oh, his name was Shoyev Moore.
she? Oh.
Say again his name.
Shoyev Moore.
Wait,
Moore.
Moritz, yeah.
Moritz. Wait, this is Veronica's boyfriend.
Yeah.
Moritz. Okay.
And what did
Show
Veronica
me
do
what
for
it-
money? What kind of work was she doing when she lived in Budapest?
Who?
Veronica, what did she do?
You know, I don't know
I
what
don't
she
know
did.
what she did either.
And she lived with him.
Yeah.
Did her parents know that she lived with him?
I don't know.
No.
She might not blab.
How did he survive the war? Do you know how
I don't know what
Veronica's?
happened to the guy.
Yeah, you don't know how he survived.
And how come she
As
didn't
a-
marry him? We don't know?
Ask
Well-
Moritz.
I don't know. Maybe he never asked her. I don't know these things.
I know there was a story where the building was bombed and she was in the cellar and she was trying to protect the rugs.
I don't know
Yeah, she-
about the rugs.
Is that correct?
Yeah, these were Persian rugs.
Yeah.
The guy dealt with, you know.
He's a rug merchant.
And when the bomb hit, Veronica was in the cellar, you know, because they had sirens,
yeah.
you know, to get down into the cellar.
Gaston,
Well,
come.
the cellar,
Varia, let's go.
the cellar was supposed to have been built such that the wall of one of the walls of the cellar was supposed to be renovated in such a way that you could knock the wall through and go into the other cellar of the next house.
Yeah.
So that it was like an escape.
Underground tunnel.
Yeah, it was an escape mode. However, what they did there was they put this big sign on the wall that it was the escape wall, but they never did modify the wall. The wall was 3 feet thick. Okay? And of course, they didn't even have the tools in the cellar to be able to
Dig through.
dig through this thing. The other wall, you're supposed to have been able to almost just kick through, you know? So they ended up in the cellar for, I think, like a couple of weeks they spent in that cellar. Well, they had some food down there because they put food down there just in case how long they were going to have to stay. But they also had a broken pipe, water pipe, and they ended up knee deep in water in that cellar. You know, and it was winter time, it was cold. And no electricity, no nothing, you know, just.
Such luxury.
And
What did you say, Rudolph?
I say such luxury.
Such luxury,
Yeah.
yes.
so anyway, Veronica spent all this time down in that cellar, and they had the rugs down there too. Supposedly the rugs didn't get wet because they had them up on some shelves or something. But it really was a big strain on Veronica, you know. Well, you can imagine being in that cellar for 14 days. And the way they got rescued was that they dug him out from the side that the bomb hit. You know, they had all this debris that from the bomb that closed off the entrance to the place, and they had to clean all that up. And they did it all by hand, you know. They didn't have equipment to do it with, you know. So.
But people knew they were down there and
Oh yeah,
rescued
they
them.
knew that there were people down there, and that's why they.
And her boyfriend was with her?
No, I don't know where he was. He was not with her.
There
I
were
think I
people
owed him
down-
money once or twice, but
You don't know if he got rounded up?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay.
How long after you went to the United States did Veronica follow? Or
2 years.
2 years later she came. Did she live with you?
At first, yes,
Okay, so she came to New York.
yes.
And I seem to recall being told that she had lung problems because of being in that cellar.
Yes, she had problems.
Asthma or something.
Yeah, for many years she was ill. In fact, that was the reason she lived in Illinois. She got a job there, taking care of some children. This fellow whose children it was, he was the president of U.S. Steel, and Veronica took care of their children. She was.
Like a nanny.
Yeah, she was a nanny to them, you know, and but she was already having some problems, health problems. So the doctor told her that she had to leave the Chicago area, go to some place where the climate is drier, and so she ended up in Palm Springs.
Yeah.
Is it true that she was the cook for Leonard Bernstein?
Yes.
Do you know anything about that?
Very little. He lived in Palm Springs, and that was one of her jobs is with him, you know. And
Didn't she live in Connecticut for a while?
she did
Before?
very short time.
Okay, probably before
Yeah,
Illinois.
before, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Say that again, what?
She lived in Connecticut
Connecticut,
then
okay.
prior to
He
going
had
to.
another boyfriend, Hans.
Dad and Rudy, when you were in Hungary, of course, you came to understand that there was a lot of Hungarian anti-Semites, especially because you came to understand the family that you lived
Yeah,
with
oh,
and
yeah,
what have you.
yeah.
And as Rudy had stated, that never really came into his mind when he was growing up. He took people as they were. He must have been raised in a way from all of these
Yeah,
grandparents and what have you, and your own mother, that, you know, that was not part of your life. In fact,
You know,
maybe quite the opposite. And I'm wondering,
Sometimes a song comes to my mind, and I wondered, where the hell did I pick that song up? And now he explained it to me that it was Asianos, that's
It's an
where
anti-Semitic
one
song.
song came from. There were others, you know.
but it must have been very curious that you had seen all this anti-Semitism in Hungary. You understood that this was the foundation for the war. And then you came to New York, of all places, and you had to have seen in New York that there were, you know, Jews everywhere, right?
You know
and that
what?
this was, and that they were living peacefully and everybody was getting along. And
You
how
know
did
what?
that feel?
You know what? Just like Rudy, I never thought of people as being Catholic or Jews or Islamic or whatever.
But the freedom
Never,
and
ever.
peace that you must have seen in the United States with the same
Well,
diversity
no.
must have been so curious. Like, why are you fighting there, but here we're all
We
living
didn't distinguish
peacefully?
about religion or Jews or anything. You was Italian, you was French, you was Hungarian. That's what mattered to me, you know, who the heck it was. It didn't matter if you were a Jew or Polish or a purple stroke or whatever.
Yeah.
It didn't enter my mind.
And do you think that came from your mother? She
I think
worked with so
I
many
think
people and
I
been
think
so.
it mostly came from Grandpa.
Okay.
You know, he was
He was a good, fair man.
yeah, he was not a religious man, but he looked at people as being good people, and that's what mattered.
I
If you
remember
were
one
good,
time,
that's what mattered.
Grandpa went to the church and he asked them for a pound of beans. And the church turned his butt down, they wouldn't give him the pound of beans, because we was pretty hungry. So, that's not my first run-in with the church. I tell you my first run-in with the church, when I was still the usher of St. George, and one day they tell me, we're gonna go to church. I'm going to church. I was so happy. So what happens, the guy comes around with a basket full of money and I reach and I got me a hand. So what happens is the guy slapped the hell out of me till I turned the money down. That was the beginning and end of the church business for me.
Was that a Catholic church?
Catholic church.
Yeah,
yeah.
Catholic Church.
Now, this is how it was. Ever since then I didn't like the church. I think they could go to hell to this day. I like to know who the hell slapped my fingers.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, but Dad, how were you with those Franciscan priests? Were they?
Well, I had an issue there too.
Uh-oh.
There was a day we had classes at the boarding house, and the classrooms were for doing your homework, you know, and then the young priests, they were called brothers. They were not yet priests, but they were already, you know, on their way to be priests. And they were the ones who were walking up and down the aisles, making sure that people were doing their lessons, you know. So one of the brothers came up to me and he told me that the assistant director would like to see me. I said, okay, so I went up to his office. And he had a stick, a bamboo stick, and he started wailing on me.
Did he say why?
No, he didn't say why.
Oh.
And I did, and I said, "Geez, what the hell did I do, And then when he finished, he told me why he did that. And he told me that he did that because I stole somebody's sandwich. And I didn't. I never even knew about what he was talking about. So
someone
I
said your
don't know
name
who
out.
stole the kid's sandwich, but it wasn't me. So somebody told him that it was me, I guess, I don't know.
But he never believed you.
I said to myself after that when I grow up, I'm going to come back to that place and I'm going to kill that sucker.
You should have killed him.
Well, I grew up and I actually went back there. But the place was already locked up. There was no priest in that place.
Everybody boogied out.
So I don't know what, they locked the place up. There was no more.
Because of the war, probably, right?
No, this was when I was there
Oh,
2 years ago,
oh, okay.
or
Right.
2 years ago, I
Yes,
guess.
yes.
Yeah, likely he died by then.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, Ferry took me over there because I was going to go over there. If nothing else, I was going to give this guy a piece of my mind,
I want to ask you guys a question about your names. Rudy, what do you know about your name? Why you're named the way you are? Are you named after anybody? And what kind of nicknames, if any, were you called in Hungary? And your dad?
I was called Rudy Rojon Rada Budi.
What? Okay.
Wait, say that again.
Say it again.
They said, Rudy Rojon Rada Budi.
Let the booty stick to you.
No, not stick to you.
You fall in.
Collapse on you.
Yeah.
Oh, collapse on you. Okay, Rojun.
The Budi is our house.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
So that was the name that
my
they
name, as
teased you
far
with.
as I knew, was Farkas, Rudolph, Jakob, Matthew. I had all those names.
What was Matthew?
That was my, when I made a confession, or what they call it, confirmation.
Oh, confirmation.
Confirmation.
Was Matthew. What was
Uncle Freddy's boss was my godfather or whatever,
Uh-huh.
and his name was Matthew.
Okay.
So I was,
And the Jacob?
Yeah, what's that?
Jakob?
Father.
I don't know what that,
I think that's your father's name,
that
isn't
was
it?
my father's name.
Janusz.
Jakob.
Yasso. Yasso was his
Yasho
name.
was the-
That
Yasho.
was
Yasho.
that's like a
But
Joseph.
that was his last name, Yashu, I
Nem.
think.
No, Kozarev was
Kozarev.
his-
Kosarev.
So, okay, but I always thought your middle name was Gustav.
Yeah, no.
Rudolph
That's
Gustav.
Rudolph, Gustav, Jakob, Jacob. I don't
Oh,
know what
wow.
else, yeah. I
Okay,
had
but
four
nobody
names.
called you Rudolph. Your friends called you Rudy.
They called me Rudy. yeah.
Always.
And why Rudolph? Where did Grandma get Rudolph from?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Maybe Rudolph Valentino. I don't know for sure.
I thought it was after a czar named Rudolph. That's what Grandma told
Oh,
me.
it could be a SR. I
That's
don't
what she
know.
told me.
Wasn't your father Russian?
No. No, he
You
was.
know
Well,
anything about your
Kozarev
father?
could be.
Kozarev could be.
Kozarev could be Russian name.
And and what do you, Rudolph? What do you know about your father?
I know absolutely nothing. All I know is that when I was born, he was 50 years old.
50. Yeah.
So I don't think he's still around because he'd be 100, 130. I don't think he's kicking.
Yeah.
I know he was in the Hungarian army. He had some rank, I don't know what, but.
Captain.
Yeah, he served in World War One.
Well, if he was in the Hungarian army, then even if he was a Russian, he must have been born in Hungary.
I had a picture of one time, but I don't know what happened to it. I thought maybe you had it.
No, I don't have it.
I don't. You don't got it. Gus and I don't know our papa too good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dad, your name, where did it come from? What were you called when you were growing up? What do you know
Well,
about?
our last name Farkas comes from my mother,
Yeah.
because neither one of us carried our father's name.
Paternal name. So you both went by Farkas growing up.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so that's my name.
How about your first and second name?
My first name Gaston, I was born in Monaco. It's a French name, so how my mother decided on that name, I don't know. It was a stupid name, but that's okay.
Why? I think that's a nice.
Well, he doesn't like it, I think, because it's very similar to the word garçon.
Yeah.
And garçon is the name for the waiter, and I think Dad has, you know,
Well, he,
recognized that these two things are similar.
and Mark, what about Mark?
I don't know.
Actually, that is the French spelling of Mark with a C.
Yeah, but
So-
I don't know
Okay.
why Mark.
Okay, so do your birth certificates say Farkas on them?
I believe so.
Mine does
Yeah.
too.
Wow, that's very
Yeah.
interesting.
And
isn't
so
it?
is there a father listed on both of yours?
No,
No,
No father's name listed on your birth certificate.
Do you
Renaissance woman.
maybe we was hatched for all you guys know.
do either of you know the story of how Ma got pregnant with your fathers?
She went to bed with
Well, I think she went to, yeah, she went to bed all right, but I don't know. I
But-
think my father was married to some other woman,
Yes.
That's
and I
what
think
it
he
was.
had 3 daughters about that time. But I never met them.
So you never heard anything from Ma? Gus?
It was
same with
mom's
me.
secret.
All I know is that my father also was a married man. Okay.
Hungarian man?
Monaco.
I believe he was Hungarian.
And
He may have been Jewish.
Yeah.
and
Them guys, they like young women. What the heck did I tell you?
and Gaston, did you hear that your father was a physician?
I don't know. I thought what I knew was that he was a pharmacist, not a physician.
Well, he may have
Maybe
been,
he
may have
may
been
have
an MD who worked as a pharmacist. Though.
That's possible. I don't know.
I have a question. Did either of you ever ask your mother about your fathers? And if so, what was the response?
Well, I asked her, who am I, and she showed me a picture of my father with some 2 other guys. I don't know who the heck they was, but I don't know what happened to that picture. And
Do you
that's the only
remember?
thing
Do
I
you
ever
remember
saw.
if that, looking at that picture, if you would have said, "Oh, I resemble him," or "There's something I see"?
No, I don't remember that.
Okay.
I
What about Dad? What about you? Did you ever ask her? So were you curious but just didn't get much information?
No, you know
Or were you
what?
embarrassed?
I tell you what happened with me. Some years ago, probably in the 80s, I got a letter from one of Mom's friends in Austria. No, not in Australia.
Totis.
Totis. I
Totis,
remember that.
yeah. And they wanted to find out from me if I would be interested in getting in touch with my father. I was 54 years old at the time.
So he was still alive.
He
No.
had just
Yeah.
passed away.
Maybe.
I thought he had just passed
Maybe.
away, and it was about whether or not you were interested in any.
No. He had not passed away
Okay.
yet.
Okay.
And I wrote him back a letter that my father had 54 years to get in touch with me, and he never has. So why would I be interested in him now?
So, oh, I remember this.
And in fact, it was supposed to be a financial gain for me. I didn't want it.
Well,
So you're
Oh.
assuming then that the Totises likely had the friendship with this individual.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the introduction to your mother.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
Oh, that's how it became.
yeah.
Because if 54 years later, they're still understanding his whereabouts and what's gone on
Yeah,
with him,
supposedly
then
he
it makes
was in
sense
France.
then it makes sense that they were the connection.
Yeah.
So we don't know too much on our father's side at all, him or me.
So my question is, I remember when this happened, wasn't there a phone call too, some sort, at that time? Do you remember? I feel like I remember you being on the phone.
The phone
Oh, no, I know
call.
what that was.
The phone call was about the Totises wanted to invest some money in the United States, and what did I think would have been a good thing to do.
Okay, well, just going back to the father thing, I'm just curious, having read Grandma's journals, you've read Grandma's journals, if perhaps the Totuses thought that the person that was your father was the person that was Rudy's father.
No,
No.
They
no,
knew
they knew exactly who
Do you
was who.
believe that they knew for sure?
Yeah,
Okay.
they were so close to Grandma, they knew her every
Oh,
move.
yeah.
They knew her every
Yeah,
move.
she babysitted or was a
was a
nanny to
governess.
this
The
juvenile
reason,
girl.
the reason I say this is because it is apparent in Grandma's journal that she led Rudy's father to believe that he was your father.
Exactly.
Yeah, right, and it was
Because she
Rudy's,
wanted money on him.
and it was Rudy's father that took her to Monaco.
Monaco.
And you know what happened? When she asked for money, he beat her up. As far as I understand, I don't think my father ever gave her any money.
Yeah, it appears that he took her there and put her up in a hotel of some sort.
But
he
she was
with-
already pregnant when
Yes.
she went to.
Yes, right, with you.
Yeah.
And she did say to him that it was his child,
Exactly.
but it wasn't. And then you were born there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have written in the journal that she was sitting in the Catholic Church holding you when she first laid eyes on Rudy's father's wife, who came in, who was from a wealthy family or was wealthy from a prior marriage. And she was holding you, and she laid eyes on this woman. And
So-
that was...
So she knew he was married. And she
She
even
knew
knew
he
the
was
wife
married.
was.
She knew who the wife
That
was.
was my father's wife
Yes.
or his
Yes.
father's wife?
No.
No, your father's
This was
wife.
in Monaco, So she was there too. The wife was there too.
Yeah.
So
But
how
then-
long did Grandma stay there? She stayed there till Rudy was born? That
She-
doesn't make sense.
No,
No,
she didn't stay
no.
there.
Your
She was
father was
holding,
richer than my
she was
father.
holding dad.
Oh, she was holding Dad.
So, and Gaston,
Yeah, that
do you
really
know
helps.
if your father was Jewish?
He said he
I-
thinks so.
I thought that he was. I don't really know.
Because Ma in her journal says that your father was good friends with the fencing champion, the Olympic fencing champion of Hungary, who was a Jewish man,
Was that?
Attila.
No, I thought that was Rudy's dad.
No, that's
Okay.
So,
So-
what was your dad's name? What was his last name?
It's not on.
Erdei.
His first name was George.
Yeah, Erdei.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And
George
what was the last name?
Erdei.
Erdei.
Yeah.
Erdei. You know what Erdei means?
Again,
Down
yeah.
south,
yeah.
Erdei is almost connected to, well, it is Romania now.
What is the Hungarian name for George?
Judy.
Judy.
How do you spell that?
G-Y-U-R-I.
Judy.
Okay, so the next question is, speaking of fathers. So now, jump forward, you now have a stepfather. And, you know, this came upon you whether you liked it or not because she married him before you even knew she married him, right? So, what was your relationship, if any, with him while you were growing up and living with him? And I know it didn't end well, but it had to start somewhere.
You know, like I say, I met him the first time in 1945 in Romania. That's where I first met him. And I lived with Mom and him until in 1953 when I got drafted in the Army. So 46, 7, 8, 9, 50. But I kind of left early because I didn't stay home too much. Gus and I went to Fisher's Island 3 years in a row, 49, 50, and 51. We played out there, worked. But hey, we got along okay.
Did he bring home the bacon?
Well, I tell you, there were some things he did that we didn't like. Rudy and I, we both earned money, not much, but you know, we always worked after school in a grocery store, or Rudy worked in a flower shop, and later we made some money, not much. you know, how youngsters get paid.
A little bit.
Anyway. So I had a little bank account, and so did Rudy. And he opened up a little business of like selling
Dry goods store.
dry goods. Okay.
What are dry goods for people who don't know?
Clothing.
Dry goods are like socks, underwear, fabric, that kind of stuff. Okay.
Beans.
And anyway, we were paying some amount of money every week for rent.
At what age?
I don't remember.
16,
what
17?
You were paying rent to Kalman,
yes,
But wait, when did he arrive in New York?
47.
48.
47.
Yeah.
48. 48,
Okay.
okay?
No, Gaston, it wasn't 48 because I was already conceived in 47. It was August 20th of 1947.
It could be, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think he
Oh,
came
okay,
to this
this could,
country in
okay, could be.
47.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
it was 48.
I
okay.
was,
Okay,
and I was
yeah.
full
So
term.
not
Yeah.
so much longer after you arrived
A
yourself.
year later or so, a year and a half later.
Yeah, year and a half.
Okay, so anyway, what happened was, when he opened his dry goods store, things weren't going good at the dry goods store. He wasn't making money like he was hoping to, you know. So he decided that he's gonna borrow money from us, okay? And he did, you know, I don't know, I remember I had 600 and some odd dollars. Rudy had somewhat less than that.
Wow,
And
that's a lot of money.
yeah, well, that's
He
what we had.
borrowed $285 from me. I don't know how much he borrowed from
He
me.
borrowed more than that from me. I don't remember what, but anyway. What happened was, finally, he ended up closing the dry goods store because it wasn't making money. And then he said that, well, he was going to pay us back for the loan. But the way he's going to pay us back is he's going to raise our rent, but we won't have to make the payment because, you know, we'll take it off the money that he owes, you know. So I didn't like that, you know. I mean, he actually ended up taking my money, you know.
Mine too.
And he's gonna pay me back by raising my rent, you know. So that was one of the things. Then one time I remember he had a bicycle, and he kept the bicycle down in the cellar. That was on 118th Street. And he asked me to go to the store and get some salt. So I said, oh man, there's my chance. I went down to the cellar, got the bicycle, got on it, went to the store, and brought back the salt. Well, he found out that I took the bicycle. And he was in a rage. He took the salt, threw it out the window, you know, and how dare I take his bicycle and all this business, you know.
It's not the first time he threw something out the window. When we were kids in New York, we used to use Bosco, you know, the
Yes.
chocolate.
Yes,
He hated the Bosco because he thought it was messy. And he came home one day and the Bosco was on the counter and he starts yelling and he just threw the Bosco out the window
So it could really make a mess.
on Henry Street.
And to tell you the truth, you know, we didn't really have a very good life with him because he never ever took us fishing. He never really went with us anywhere, you know.
Your grandfather made a better father.
Oh, much better, yeah, you know. I mean, we didn't have a close relationship. You know, we lived there, we lived there, but there wasn't.
I know that you never took his last name. You were Flodkish's for a long time.
Yes.
And then there was a transition wherein you made a decision, or you
No,
were
no, no.
allowed to make a decision?
He
I'd like to hear
made-
a little bit about the name
He
change.
made the decision that he didn't want to have the name Goodlawn anymore. For what reason he didn't want to be Goodlawn, I
Yeah,
don't
what
know.
happened was in 1948, we went to a camp called Camp Grant out on Long Island.
And this was a boys' like sleepover camp.
Oh, no, it was for the summer, or.
All summer, for the boys, it
48,
wasn't the
about
family.
When he was born, he was hatched around that time, and so Gus and I went to.
And this is a fishing, camping kind of a thing.
Yeah, it was like
Fun.
a boys' camp. We went fishing, canoeing, and wrestling, and
It was camp.
Yeah,
yeah.
fun.
It was a
fun.
friend, it was a friend of his that knew about this camp, and he's the one who arranged for us to go there,
Yeah,
which
it
was
was-
very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was George Weiss, his name was.
I remember George Weiss. He was
Oh, Judy
He was
Bocci?
a waiter.
butler, waiter at the
Was that
Laochi
Judy
place.
Bocci?
At the
Restaurant.
Tokai.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he arranged for it, you went there, you came back, around this same time, Carmine is thinking about this name change.
Yeah, so to make it easy in the family, he decided that, hey, why don't we all have the same last name?
And did this seem weird and foreign? At this point, you guys are well into your teens.
Well, it didn't
Change your
matter,
name.
you know. So, my name actually became official Grant when I was in the service. I was called in by a judge from the service in Georgia. And I guess he blessed my name there, and that's when I became officially Grant.
What year was that?
That was in 1950.
Oh, 52, you was in
50,
there.
53 is when I went in, I think. But I didn't get to Georgia until 54, so it was in 1954.
You were drafted in 53 when you were 20?
Yes,
Or you would have been-
52,
I was
he
still
in-
19.
19,
I didn't
yeah.
hit my
Yeah.
20th birthday.
Why weren't you drafted at 18?
And how many people they need at the
Because-
time, Mary?
We was still in
Yeah.
school.
Oh, because you
Because-
were still in school.
See, I was a year late graduating
Right.
because of my starting late. You know, we started the first grade in 1946.
Right.
You know,
You had some
so
catching up to do.
When in 1946?
in February 1946.
Okay.
Yeah, Vivi just told the story of how they were on the street and the truant officer stopped them.
Yeah. And truant officer was, he didn't know the rules.
Yeah, he didn't know the rules, that fourth grade was enough.
Well, fourth grade was enough.
How did you feel
I
about,
was 12, he was 13.
how did
know,
you
that
feel
was
about
school.
re-entering school?
They put us with the
We didn't
first
have a
graders.
problem.
Yeah, you liked learning. I mean, you both are good students, so it
Yeah.
probably,
And we sat on top of the bench, the seats, because we were too big to sit into them.
in the long run, it was, look,
In
you
2
you
years
ended up with
before
your
they say-
engineering, what would you have done without
The
that?
first year, I mean, the first grade was only a week. You know, second grade was 2 weeks. And the third grade was up to end of June or so.
And what, how old were you then? 14, 15?
I was
It's
13.
13, 1946.
And back to the name again. So you two chose this grant.
I didn't choose
No.
it,
No.
he
My
did.
fault.
Oh,
Yeah.
he picked
And
it
we
from that
agreed
camp.
that's a good
Okay.
name.
Wait, he picked it from what?
The Camp Grant.
Camp Grant.
Oh.
Yeah, there used to be a plaque
Right.
in the dining room
Yeah, I
with an
made that.
Indian head. You made that
I
plaque.
Was this
Yeah.
named after Ulysses Grant, the camp?
Yeah.
Well,
Very
Well, I
interesting.
don't know
Camp
if it
Grant.
was useless or what, but Camp Grant was the name of the,
And even though you all now had the same last name, were you legally adopted by him?
Never.
No.
no.
Never.
Hey, who'd wants us, man?
I do,
Who'd wants us?
I do,
2 hoods?
my brothers.
So when you left for the army, did you guys leave around the same time?
No, I left first. I left in February of 53.
I graduated
And-
in 53.
And Rudy wasn't out of school yet. So yeah, because I graduated in June in 52. he was still in school.
How was the decision made that you would go to the high school of Machine and Metal High School versus some other high school?
That was one thing that I appreciate. He is the one that recommended that. You know?
And he,
Otherwise, we would have been in
Regular.
Franklin High School right there in Pleasant Avenue, but they said this is a technical school, and we go there, and we did.
It
yeah,
was called
And it was
Machine
a
and
good
Metal.
school.
yeah, High
That was
School
the
of
name of-
Machine and Metal.
High School of Machine and Metal.
Yeah.
Machine and metal trades.
I have your graduation thing.
And you know who graduated from there also?
Yeah, Jordan.
Oh, Jordan too, and Cruz.
Robert Cruz?
Cruz also
Rudy,
went
what
there.
street was the school on?
What?
96th Street,
Yeah, 96th Street.
Did you enjoy it, Rudy?
between 1st and 2nd Avenue.
Did you ever get your own bikes to bike to school? And
No, we took the bus.
but you had all this money saved up. How come you didn't buy yourself bikes?
What do you mean we had all this money saved up?
You
We
had-
never got the money paid back.
No, Ertem, but before you even loaned it to him, you didn't use the money for yourself?
Well, because
They were saving it.
I was saving my money. I
I
wasn't.
think they probably knew they're gonna be out pretty soon, one way or the
Gus
other.
and I worked all the time, most of the time, you know, one way or another,
They were very
delivering groceries, got tips and all that good stuff. We didn't make much money,
They taught me to roll.
but we gave some for mom at you know, for rent and the grub.
They took me to Tarzan.
Tell a story about when Aunt Vivi set her nightgown on fire. And how that,
Oh.
how you,
Oh.
where was Grandma, where was everybody, what
Okay.
happened?
I had to go to work in Long Island at the flower shop, and out in Long Island I went, and I come home, these guys were all burnt.
That's it.
What happened?
That's a Rudolph story. That's a Rudolph story.
That was in a nutshell.
Leave it
Right.
to your imagination what
I
happened
mean,
in
you know, we
between.
only have so much time on the video.
Yeah.
Moms can explain, you're the one.
Okay, so what happened was
And how old is Aunt
I
Vivi?
worked at Ford Instrument
He
Company,
was about 8.
and I
And-
worked.
What
Where,
year?
High school? Down
I
high
was out of high school.
And out of the military?
No, I was not out of the military. I didn't go into the military yet.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And so what year was this, Gus?
That was in 52.
52. So Vivi was 8 years old.
Yeah, I think she was. Yeah.
Okay, Dad, tell us what happened.
So what happened was, Rudy and I had a bedroom and we had bunk beds. I had the top bunk, Rudy had the bottom bunk. And the kitchen was just off
Outside of that.
that bedroom. There was no door on the bedroom, but, you know. Anyway, I used to get home somewhere around 5 or 6 in the morning from work, and I'd go to bed. Everybody's asleep. So, all of a sudden I hear screaming. You know, I wake up. I jump up, run out in the kitchen, and here is Vivi like a torch, you know. And so I took my hands and I pulled all the clothing off her, you know, and patted her head so that the fire would go out. And by that time, Mom ran out of the bedroom, you know, and so did Karma. And so they saw Vivi, they got a blanket, you know, wrapped her up, and they took off in a taxi to the hospital. And Vivi was in the hospital from January. This was right around her birthday, a little bit. I don't know if it was before or after her birthday anymore. But I think, yeah, somewhere around her birthday. And she was in the hospital until near the end of May. You know, that's a long time. That's,
And Vivi, you remember
4
all
months.
that time?
Oh, yes, she does.
And what were you doing that you caught your nightgown on fire?
Well, I lit a match to light the stove,
For breakfast?
and I don't remember. And the match fell, and instead of putting it out, I tried to pick it up, and it caught my robe on fire.
That's how it happened.
Now,
Oh,
Viv,
yeah.
you
Like I
had
say,
told me you were trying to light
I had to
a
go to
candle.
work that day.
No.
I don't know, I wasn't around when this happened. And I come home, these guys are burnt.
So she was in a burn unit for all of these months, Dad,
Yeah,
from
And you were-
January through May. And were you guys going and visiting her pretty
oh,
regularly?
yeah.
Yeah.
It must have been such a turn of events to be then visiting many years later her son in a burn unit. I just
Yeah.
can't
That was
imagine.
my worst nightmare.
I remember you telling me
Better
that.
than me.
So then, after they left to go to the hospital, I was gonna go to bed, but I felt my hands,
Your hands were
you
burned.
know,
On fire.
and I look at them and man, they both hands are burnt bad, you know. So, this was already, oh yeah, I had already had my papers to go into service, you know, so. So I said, gee, you know, I gotta get to somewhere to take care of my hands, you know. So I was gonna walk out the front door and, man, I couldn't even touch the latch, you know, the knob, the doorknob. And, but I had to, you know. So I went out on the street and I got a taxi cab. I asked the taxi cab driver to open the door for me because I couldn't. And then he took me down to the same hospital Vivi was in,
Mount Sinai.
Mount Sinai on Lexington Avenue and I don't remember what street that was.
The 80s.
Whatever street anyway. So they took me in and they wrapped each of my fingers in some jellied gauze, you know, and so I was like a mummy.
Still couldn't
Went.
open the door.
Hmm?
Still couldn't open the
No.
doors now. Yeah.
Were you home when Vivi came home in May, or were both of you already
No,
gone?
I was in the service.
You were in the service.
Yeah,
And
I
Rudolph,
was home,
you were home.
yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
remember about that when Vivi came
Yeah.
home?
yeah. I used to work at that time at what they call Munch TV on Queens
Uh-huh.
after that. And out of there, I got drafted in August, so that year, in '53. He was already in the service.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Lexi's already born at this time?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So who's watching Lexi when all this chaos is going on that night? You are. I see.
And me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I
I'm
watched
watching
him
Mary too. He's little, little.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So there
because
was
Vivi's only
always a lot of
8.
extra parenting going on, you know, because of the age
Well,
differences.
let me
and-
tell you something. I washed many diapers from her and Lexi by hand in that tub there by
I'll
hand.
bet you that's why Elaine said, you're the one. You cook, you've worked in a flower shop, you've changed diapers, I'll take you. Right, Elaine? You had a lot of experience.
Plus I was rich, but I didn't tell her that.
Because you were rich. I forgot about the rich and handsome part,
He was
right?
good looking.
Yeah.
Never mind the
So when you left the Army, did you have it in your mind that you were going to move to California?
I
or-
did.
You did,
Yeah, we
Gus.
all kinda did, you know, there was 4 of us guys that was gonna get out of the Army and then come to California. There was Gus and me and Joe and Johnny Casalicci,
Actually,
Joe Liska?
Jolie Scott.
Jolie's.
yeah, actually what happened was I got out of the service before Rudy did. And I wrote Rudy a letter that if he would stay in the service, I would re-up and go and get attached to his unit. You know, I could have done that. And Rudy wrote me a letter that he's not gonna stay in the service. So when he wrote me that I was already working at Ford Instrument Company. And when he wrote me that he wasn't going to stay, and I said, well, okay, I'm going to go to California, whether he's going to come with me or not. I said, I'll wait till you get out of the service. If you want to come with me to California, fine. If not, I'm going anyway.
So Gaston Khan, what was your decision, why your decision to go to California?
Because I thought that if I am going to be in New York, I didn't really want to have, if I was going to get married and whatnot, I didn't want my future in New York. I didn't want to bring children up in New York. And I said to myself, you know, there are roughly 13 or 14 million people live in New York, and the rest of the people, you know, the 100 or 200 million live somewhere else. They must all live somewhere.
Yeah.
You know. So it didn't have to be New York for me. And I heard, while I was in the service, I had a friend of mine that had a girlfriend that lived in California, and he ended up coming out to California, and I guess they live in California still. I don't know where. I never saw him after we got out of the service, but I said, I'm going to try California.
Did you not come to California during the service? I thought you did.
No.
No.
So you had
No.
never come until after the service.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And so what did Uncle Rudy say when after you wrote that letter?
Well, he didn't want to come. I mean, he didn't want to stay in the service. So I told him that I would wait till he gets out, and he can make his decision whether he wants to come with me or not. So he got out of the service. A few days later, we decided that we're going to come to California, and that's when this friend of ours, Joe Liska, decided that he was going to leave home, and he was going to come with us.
And plus the fact that there was another guy, Johnny, and he was gonna come to California, the four of us. But what happened was, when I got discharged, Johnny got drafted.
Oh my God.
So we ain't gonna wait for Johnny for 2 years.
No.
So the three of us boogied up.
Now, Dad, is this when you got the car that the guy wanted, or that was the second time?
That's when he went with Mom.
Yeah, that's when you went with Mom. That's when you got the car. So how did you guys get to California?
First time.
I had I bought a car in the service
Okay.
in Georgia.
Chevy.
It was a Chevy, yeah.
And that's what you guys drove to California?
Yeah,
That was a long drive.
yeah, and
Okay,
I think in Iowa, on the way here in Iowa, my line from the radiator to the engine, that line broke. And what are we gonna do? Because I think it was on a Sunday. You know, there was no place to get the thing fixed or anything. So we saw this garden hose this guy had in his yard, front yard. Jumped over the fence, got the garden hose, and wrapped my hose with that garden hose. And I wrapped it tight enough so that the water would just barely leak.
Trickle.
You know,
Just trickle.
yeah, trickle out of it. And we got on our way. And I don't remember, I guess it was in Nebraska that I ended up getting a new, all right, and then.
What year was this?
That was in
55,
55.
Okay.
summer
And
of
what was it that you didn't like about New York? Too crowded?
It was too crowded, plus it was dirty.
Okay.
You know, the city itself was, Manhattan itself wasn't, now there were very nice areas in Manhattan, but I knew that I couldn't afford to live there, you know. So,
And now it's the most fabulous.
anyway,
You come.
so we ended up in Nebraska, then I think we stopped in North Platte. We stopped overnight, and in fact, we went, Nebraska, the time zone runs through Nebraska. And in fact, it runs just west of North Platte. So if you went west of North Platte, oh, by the way, east of North Platte, you couldn't buy booze. But if you went across the time zone, you could buy booze. You could, you know, plus you gained an extra hour. So all of us went over there, and it was like the little town that we went to. I don't know what it was anymore, but it was a cowboy town, you know. And they had a band and whatnot. So we had a few drinks there and went back to North Platte. And then we continued on. We went to Las Vegas. We stopped in Las Vegas. Las Vegas had, at the time, one stoplight in the whole city of Las Vegas.
Right on the strip.
Right on, no, not on the strip. There was no strip.
Okay.
In town, in the old part of Las Vegas. And there were only a handful of casinos there, you know. I don't know, maybe 5.
My boyfriend lived there yet?
And what happened, the only light that they had in that town, my brother had to jaywalk and get a ticket. I was flabbergasted. You know, he would pick the only place. He'd go across the street
And get pulled over.
and get pulled over by a cop. Cop gave him a ticket.
That's hysterical.
Remember
I bet you
that?
guys and Rudy, did you guys stay in hotels in this 2 weeks it took you?
No.
Where did you sleep?
Oh, we slept in the car most of the time.
In the car. That must.
And when we went to...
Where'd you get your showers?
What shower?
For 2 weeks?
We get there with
No, you know, we'd stop.
YMCA's? Are there YMCA's?
Yeah,
Like I
we
say,
would
it took
stop
us
at-
2 weeks to get across from New York to LA. We stopped in Chicago, visited Anne Veronica and Winnetka. We liked the town. We stayed a day or two, you know, and on a farm, they
Chicago.
grew watermelons. We stopped each, a big watermelon each for $1 each, 3 of them for $1. And we stopped our watermelon and then kept on going.
Chicago, I remember this hotel. We did stay in a hotel because we went to visit Veronica and they didn't have a place for us, so we stopped in this hotel. And it was the hottest night you can imagine in Chicago. And we had this room and the windows were boarded up. Not boarded up, but they were nailed shut. And it was,
In case of fire.
Good neighborhood. Good neighborhood.
yeah. So we found that some bar down on the street had air conditioning. You know, oh man, that's for me. So we all went down there and spent some time. But it was horrific in that room, and we couldn't wait for morning to come so we could get the devil out of there.
Yeah.
One thing in Chicago that we saw, they had these brand new Thunderbirds with the round windows,
Oh, yeah.
you know?
Oh yeah, that little
Oh.
round, that little like it's like a little
yeah.
Porthole.
porthole
Brand new
window.
one. Oh, so
1955.
I like to get one of those dogs,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Never did get one, but
Yeah.
that was the cat's ass
Um,
as far as the cars are concerned.
Livy has a question about Gus going back to New York.
Why did you go back to New York after you went to California?
Because Mom wanted me to come to New York
Why?
because she had the 3 girls, and she needed some help.
Oh, yeah, that's when you lived with us, right?
You know?
At that point, her husband wasn't there.
No, she already boogied.
Yeah.
So what year was this, Gus?
That was in 58.
58. So Kalman had just left.
He had already left.
Yeah.
When I got home, he left.
Right.
Call it like it is, she
What-
chased him away.
So he he left, she's there with the 3 girls, you're very happy in California,
Yeah, it was fine, yeah.
and she sends a letter or a phone call or what?
I don't remember it. I think it was a phone call.
And
Yeah.
how did you feel thinking, you have to leave California? I mean,
You didn't think it was, you thought it was temporary.
Yeah, I didn't think it was gonna be forever, you know.
You
And,
know,
and in
one-
fact, how long did you, when did you go back to California? You met Trudy then, and then
Yeah.
you married Trudy.
but wait,
Yeah.
so 1958 you went back to New York
Yeah,
and you quit whatever job you had in California
yes.
and thought, okay, I'm going to get a new job in New York,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, I went back to Ford Instrument Company and they rehired me.
and you lived with grandma?
Yeah,
I lived with Grandma.
yeah,
on
And,
Henry Street.
yeah,
and was she working?
yeah.
Yeah,
And how old were the girls about at this time?
I was 10, Lexi would have been 12, and Vivi was 14.
yeah, and then I took them on a trip to Canada.
Oh, I remember that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Just the 4 of you?
In Chicago.
Yeah, we went to Chicago
Yeah, I
first,
remember that.
and then we went up to Toronto to visit Uncle Gaza.
How
You
cool.
remember
That
that?
is
Oh,
really
Gaza was
cool.
in Toronto, in
Yeah,
a chicken farm.
Yeah,
And when he first
So
brought,
you drove back across the country with your car?
yes.
when
Wow.
he first brought your mother home to meet us, or we meet her, I liked her right away.
So, but you
Actually, I had a new car. I had a 56 Chevy
Okay.
that I bought here.
And-
I'm out married. You know, you guys, as little boys, all the way to the time that you have made it to California.
And just before he
And I
meets
know,
your mother.
You know, we kind of skipped over the part that at that point, Rudy met Elaine at the trash can and the dumpster. And, you know, that Rudy stayed because you got married and you lived in the valley and what have you. So I feel thankful that we got a gigantic portion of your lives in that amount of time and people stayed on point. And I really,
It was so
I hope you
professional.
guys understand how much we respect your time and that, you know, you have so much material and, you know, just it's so interesting for us and it's something we should have done a long time ago. And I hope that you know how much we really love hearing about it. You know, everybody doesn't have these stories and I am so impressed with your memories. I can't remember yesterday, but the fact that you guys can get months and dates and times is amazing to me, especially with all of the movement in
Guess
your
who
lives.
took your mother to the hospital when you was born? Me.
Gaston, what year did you meet Trudy?
When Robbie was born.
In
It's been 6 months.
1960.
60. So you came back in 58, you stayed, you met Trudy in 60, and what year did you take her back to California?
61.
61. Okay. So and then Ma decided to go to California in 62.
I
Yeah.
think she was
Okay.
in 61.
Who's this?
Patty.
Oh.
Okay.
You're
Okay, I'm closing
This
off. This was an
is Lottie's
interview
father.
with
And Patty's,
you think I should
and
send
Patty's
that picture to them?
grandfather.
Should I send that to Patty?
Oh, I'm sure they have a
this
copy.
was an interview with
Yeah,
Gus
that's
Grant
Patty.
and Rudy Grant, and it took place on June
So what other kind
7th,
of pictures you got?
2014.
Got those,
This is
huh?
And Mom-
D-Day in Hungary.
And my mother remembered, and my mother heard on the radio in one of the shops that we were passing that the Americans landed in France,
D-Day.
D-Day. And I remember exactly where I was when that happened.
And what were your thoughts at that time about that? About what that might mean for you?
Well, I had no idea at all that someday I'm gonna be going there, you know.
And what was Ma's reaction?
Oh, Mom was elated, you know, that the Americans landed.
Actually, the first United States soldier I met in Bucha.
Really?
Yeah. Hi.
Hey,